All right, good evening, everyone. This is Devin Guerrero, or Pacifica Divine. Find me on Instagram and YouTube as well for Pacifica Divine. This is the Dark Heart Podcast, Episode 6. I'm here tonight with my friend Andrew.
Hi, how are you?
From Film Phantom. He's a really great guy, co-worker. I love him. But I could just go on about him if you let me, but I'm going to go ahead and let him introduce himself. So, Andrew, if you don't mind.
All right, sure. My name's Andrew. I do have a YouTube channel in which I do movie-related things. I live with my girlfriend in a duplex with nice garage, backyard. Work at Cheesecake Factory with this great human being right here. And that's pretty much what I have my focus on right now. It's my girlfriend, my job, and what I aspire my job to be.
That is really beautiful because it's simply put, and I like it because it is simply put, because some people, they really stress looking for something that could sum up like what's really important, what's really going on right now.
Yeah.
And I think that you did it very well.
Oh,
quite succinctly.
well, thank you.
Now, I find that people really spend a lot of time searching because they can't say it.
Yeah.
Because they don't spend the time ever thinking on it.
Definitely. They kind of like go around in circles trying to think about what is important to them, and they eventually circle back to it in their own mind, thinking like, oh, this is what I was trying to say. But I feel like I've been doing that for so many years on what I feel like I should be doing in my life that I feel like I finally found it.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's very simple. What's important to me.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good. Beautiful. I've been talking about getting on the podcast, and I've brought it up on my Instagram for a while now because you're someone who, like me, has an interest in projecting something outside of maybe just the normal kind of digital social media footprint.
Mm-hmm.
Like myself, I'm not just doing Instagram. I've developed like a small page just to kind of express myself artistically.
Okay.
And then I'm also doing a YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of it's going to be for personal vlog, personal videos, and then also, of course, the podcast and whatever else I want to put out there.
Yeah.
But that's kind of just what I'm doing right now. I wanted to get you on because you're doing film reviews, and it's Film Phantom, if I'm not mistaken the name?
Film Phantom, one word, no spaces. Correct.
I love the logo, by the way. The logo it kills me.
It took me a long time to get that. If you would, picturing how simple it is, it took me a long time to finally get it to where I wanted it to. But yeah, definitely. I feel like I've accomplished a brand and a vision, and I tweak it as I go. But having a focus helps you to further your passion.
Absolutely. No, I'm of the same mind, my pardon. I've talked a lot about Edson on the podcast and with him outside the podcast about requiring goals as necessary
to
you require goals to create a roadmap to direct yourself at an end.
Yeah. So
the goal is not the end, or it shouldn't be the end in itself. It should be a marker towards something else, and it's ideal if you have an idea clearly what that is, especially earlier, rather than later. But it doesn't mean that you can't change it. Along the way, or even like if you found out that your life, like you saw the meaning of life near the end of your life, it wouldn't be a waste of life because you saw you figured it out. So in that sense, I think even someone could not know exactly where they're going, but so long as they're setting themselves up with the right goals, they'll be kind of, on that plateau. They'll be hitting those plateaus to where like they could look over and
see where they came from and where they have to go.
I think there's a lot of people who are in a process of becoming, but it's unfortunate how we very often get misdirected, or we stop ourselves, or we never have the time to kind of access those ideas or modes of life. And only by that I mean that we're all in the process of generating income, generating money, generating market power. We were having this, I was bringing up this discussion at work, and it's kind of just tickled me. We're coming to work because we have to, and it's like, oh shit, we gotta work.
Yeah.
And I was talking to one of the Alexes, Alex V.
Okay.
Yeah. I love Miss Clinton, but Alex V is great too. I was talking to her about it would just be great if we could just. Oh, I'm gonna get dressed for work because that's where I'm so happy to go today. I'm gonna be so excited, and all my good friends are there. Like I'm gonna be extra starched for them.
Yeah. Forget
like dressing nice for the guests. I want to look good for my coworkers.
Yeah.
Shit.
Exactly.
And it's like that's like I spat that out because I was thinking that sounds really nice. Like I
have passion for where you're going to generate this income.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you see it that way, that's your life. And what is your life? Your life is your identity, your role, right? And it's like when your role in society is identified with what you do, and I think people will be satisfied with kind of what they're doing, where they are, and who they are that way. I think that we're all kind of, I think someone else made this point perhaps, and don't worry, I'm going to bring it back to where we talked before. Just wanted to dive in this real quick. You know what? I keep forgetting this. Holy shit. Like, sir. Like, cheers. Holy crap. Oh my god. I haven't had gin in years.
It's delicious.
Whoa! Oh my goodness. Call the fire department. They put this shit out. Let me get lit drinking this.
Am I right? I mean, I feel like I'm drinking like Capri Sun.
Oh my god.
It's...
Oh my god! Okay. For like, I think we did like crazy drinks a couple times ago, but this is Gilby's gin, so that's well at most places.
Yes.
And this, I've only doing heavy ice, two lemon, and this is a Fiji apple. What's that? Like a bubbly
clear American sparkling flavored water.
And I bet the sugar's off the hook.
It's 0.
Holy sh! Okay,
that's why this is 0 calories.
Okay, so I gotta say. Keto friendly people here, and this is like, I mean, alcohol is a no-no in the lemon probably, but,
but I mean, you gotta
gin.
Yeah.
Holy shit! Oh my god! Yeah, dude, I haven't had gin in years. Oh my god. Side story before we get into that. Holy shit. This used to be my drink.
Really?
Well, I mean, not the fruit stuff, but I did like a gin and tonic.
Oh, okay.
I went from White Russians to gin and tonics. To 7 and 7s, and then I quit hard liquor there, and I quit going out.
Okay.
Really.
Okay.
As like an evening, nightly lifestyle thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you do enough of that, and
you get
like
kind of sick of it.
I'm amazed at the people that still go hard. Oh Lord, like I see them downtown sometimes in Huntington, by the way. OC, Cali, USA.
Yeah.
Who knows who's listening? By the way, anyone English anywhere.
Yeah.
This shit will probably auto-translate eventually, yeah. Oh god, I'm gonna die asphyxiating on this shit. Where was I just now? Talking about something.
Talking about...
Gins, drinks, that's right.
Yes.
I used to do, only drink 2 gins. If it wasn't well, I would go for Bombay Sapphire.
Okay.
Which I have an awful side story about that. Maybe I'll avoid. And then Tanqueray 10. Tanqueray 10 is probably
good. Tanqueray's really good.
I'd go for Tanqueray and Tanqueray 10 if it was available, because like that's
is that
that's the step
premium?
up. You have the step up
Okay.
Tanqueray, and that's pretty tasty.
Really?
Yeah, that's.
I usually go if I. Okay, so I only really drink. So 21st birthday. I go to Vegas with 2 of my friends. They're not even 21 yet, but I am turning 21. So we go to Costco and we get like the super big bottles of liquor. But I've never drank, so I'm just like, I don't know what to get. So we each get like different kinds, and my choice was Bombay Sapphire. And I don't drink Bombay Sapphire anymore. but
I have the same story.
I have turned around to gin as a whole, though. It's a very good mixer.
No, it certainly is. It's a great drink to mix. I like it as an alternative to vodka. I don't do vodka.
Oh, really?
The not taste, not smell of vodka, I don't believe it. That's horseshit. It's got a taste, and I don't like it. It rubs me the wrong way. And I mean, I've had the only one I really liked And even then, it was like a fruit-infused one, so I can't even say it was, you know, and so I can't even say it was Ciroc.
Oh, okay.
Because it's nice and smooth.
Ciroc is smooth.
Yeah, I like that. I like that very nicely distilled vodka.
Have you had Tito's?
I've had Tito's. I've had a lot of good.
I like Tito's.
I've had a lot of vodka, and I've given it all the tries. It's not me. I'm not a big tequila person either. I've leaned to the whiskeys.
If I'm going to take a shot, it's gonna be tequila or it's gonna be whiskey. I can't do vodka, gin, rum shots.
Shots I mostly stay away from these days because they
just. So do I.
Oh,
but
it
if
hurts.
I had to,
it hurts.
Like when Mark went for his.
Oh yeah, well that's the thing. You have to have shots.
We had tequila shots, so I had a couple of those, and I feel those go down smoother than other shots.
You know, I like Bonitos, what?
That's a tequila.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think. I did have something not too long ago that was really good. I think I got into tequila a little bit with Patron Silver, and then a little bit of Don Julio. I like that. That's good.
Really good.
I used to get I used to live up in LA, and the girl I lived with, I'd get Don Julio comes in these tiny little bottles, and I know I love it though. I love it. That's my thing. So I'd really enjoy like a nice little tequila. Drink.
The really good tequila is very good. Very crappy tequila will make you feel like crap.
I'm out of that stage of drinking where it's like I want to drink smart. But I'd always do like 2 limes, always citrus. Like I needed that with my gin.
Citrus helps very, very much cut down the fragrant aftertaste.
The floral notes. Yeah, I see the overpowering floral notes is the hangover sense and smell and taste.
Yeah, no, definitely.
that I got after getting wrecked on Bombay Sapphire.
That's why I don't drink Bombay Sapphire.
Yes, I don't drink most gins anymore. But this is kind of like a nice flashback. Yeah. I drink, if anything, whiskeys now, and these days, if anything, I'd probably go out and buy Michter's, which
that's a whiskey.
It's a whiskey. Well, they do a rye, they do a whiskey, and I think they got like maybe like 3 or 4 bottles. But I dig them because, as I understand it, as a thing, it's a really old distillery that George Washington drank from.
Wow.
So that's kind of their thing. Like
this
this is George's whiskey.
Yeah. Okay.
And that sounds cool.
Yeah. No, definitely. I'd never heard of that. Is that like at most liquor stores?
I saw it years ago. Well, I used as a note, everyone. I used to homebrew.
Oh, nice.
Like I'd love to pick up the equipment and start again, but I'd want some space, honestly.
No,
and
definitely.
I'd love to turn that, like right there, into a podcast experience. I'd love to turn that into like a, an invite for the staff to come over.
Behind the scenes, kind of like I'm going to show you how to do this kind of.
Well, not only that, but I mean, it's like there's not enough events that bring our people out, and the podcast. Tonight's podcast is going to demonstrate something. The podcast is an example of how, in the way that I explained this to Angela today at work, the moments we have between serving guests, running food, talking like you need this, I need that, like all the shit we have to do, are all the human moments between us, and we get to see each other and work with each other in the shit, in our war. Like those are the moments that I'm trying to exploit, because I live for those. Like and it's shit busy, it's all going wrong, and like we get to still like laugh our asses off between the hell.
Definitely,
right? Like those, I live for that. Like Cheesecake's my family. Holy crap! Like I never thought I could say that about anything. Right? Like holy crap! I didn't know I could say that.
That's good.
But it's true, dude. It's totally true. And so like recognizing that's something that I realized I wanted to yoke. I wanted to pull that out. I wanted to pull out that environment. Because what I think that demonstrates is what you hear this word a lot thrown around is a tribe. It's a community, right? And we can go into another direction with that, certainly. But what I was trying to get at, Mark's thing is a good example, is that it's a community thing, right? Someone's going away. there's someone's funeral, there's someone's this, there's someone's that, someone's having a baby, someone's getting married, someone's, you know, someone's coming. This is a new person, you know, so
someone's coming in.
Yeah, so like a smaller group will take them out. And
yeah.
You know, I remember it was like such a big deal for me my first year when I think Sarah May like invited me out to, I think, like a karaoke thing, and I was so like, oh my god, Sarah May invited me of the people, because like she was part of like this clique.
Yeah.
You know, there's been some cliques, and there still are.
It's that's what humans do, but that's okay because it's natural. But honestly, this is one of the few places that I've worked at where it does feel like a community, and it's not just people coming in because it's their job. So I like that about where we work. I feel like that's one of the reasons why I continue to work here. And also the money, but
no, certainly it's good money. Yeah. See, people don't leave Anaheim because it is good money, right?
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
No other store has Disneyland right next door, literally.
The convention center
and the convention center, like, and it's like, down the street. And there's only more stuff getting built. So I mean, like, it should only grow. The hotel's being finished behind us. Like, it's a money store. Like, it's a good place to set up shop.
Yeah,
and I really. It's weird, like, going through the injury, it's weird to see things that I've wrote about and talked about for years finally happen. Like, the to-go area is kind of, like, solid now, and I'm like, thank goodness. I recognized that when I got there in 2013. This whole place is not working. And 3 management teams later, and it's like, some shit is finally starting to work. Right? And it's that's something that always threw me off. I'm sorry we're jumping around to so many tangents. We're going to bring it around. I'm recognizing that. Yeah. It's going to work organically in the end. Something I noticed living in LA, and I think in a lot of American cities this is happening now, like, you can get home way late and dinner's delivered any time of day now.
No, yeah,
right?
Definitely.
And a couple years ago,
everything was
like,
closed.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I would get home from Cheesecake Anaheim. Like, I'd close on like a Friday night.
Yeah.
Like 2 o'clock. 2:11. I mean, sorry, D11. So that's like, like, I'm getting the last. Okay, like this. See, this leads into another problem right here. Like, because I wasn't buddy with the desk people, other people who were.
Oh, you're getting
so I'm getting the last tables guaranteed, and so like everyone would like. Fucking Devin's always left in D11 closing shit. Anyway, so I get out there late last always. I fucking hit it, and dude, like, sometimes I wouldn't get home till, I want to say like 2:30.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that makes sense.
Right? Just because of side work and shit. But I mean, like, it was straight home up the 5 to Los Feliz, where I lived at the time. Right below Griffith Park. So Hollywood and Western.
Wow.
Yeah. But I mean, if you know the right time to come down in the day, it's actually an easy drive.
No, yeah, when there's nobody on the road, it's very fast.
Yeah, and so then at nighttime, it was an instant,
you're home,
like, half hour, I'm back. And so, like, as far as commutes go, I had a pretty good LA experience. I will say, like, it was a love-hate thing with LA. Like, going through it, I loved it, and I'd do it again. But it was fucking difficult.
That is a far drive.
It can become tiresome. Yeah.
Probably halfway between where you used to live and where we currently work. And like, it was yesterday. Yesterday, I was a closer in Bar 3. Closed at 12:30. Had last minute table. They don't leave till 1. Had to do my paperwork, all that. I still didn't get home till 2, and I live 10 miles closer than where you did live. You know. So it is not always the easiest hours wise. It was like a 9.5 hour shift.
But I bet the options now are a lot different, because what I was leading up to was I'd get home, and in LA, like, there's a couple different apps for like
food delivery.
So like, I mean, it wasn't as vibrant as it was today, is today. But I mean, like, I could get amazing food within half an hour delivered to my place. Like, I'd be like, just finished like getting out of the shower and like just dressed down and like,
and your food's,
you know, like, boom, like fuck, I got Thai food, right?
Yeah.
I lived right in Little Armenia / Thai town.
Okay.
So like,
that's good food then.
Oh man, it was the best fucking food. Oh my god, Andrew, the food in LA makes it worth it. Oh my god.
Yeah. And just the fact that everything's still open.
See, yeah, that's it. Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure it's progressing in other parts of the country, but at a certain point on a random Wednesday, at any other point in the country, like at 9 o'clock, everything's closed.
Oh yeah.
Like everything's closed. So like the fact that it is getting better overall, but here in the LA area,
there's enough business.
There's something open. Yeah. You're gonna find some kind of food. There's no way you're gonna go to bed, hungry. There's food somewhere.
See, that's a good point right there, because like I think urbanization plays a huge role in like how people live and what they do. Because if you have enough of an urbanized area, the nightlife it's sustaining itself, right? Like there's a whole life that goes on in the evening, and then after, and then that services the people that
stay up
that have to, because they're service people. Like I think that's actually probably the future, is that like we have like 2 or 3 cycles a day where it's like, where you have obviously people that have to take care of business in the evening, and then people that are like then catering to those people,
and the people in the early morning.
Exactly, like that'd be fucking efficient if someone was getting on that.
I mean,
I think that's the way with the population growth and continuing.
We'll eventually get there.
We're continually getting there.
Because I mean, good or bad, I've been going to bed like at 6:30 to 7 in the morning, just because I feel like there's less people awake, which means you kind of have more time for yourself. And, watching TV or playing video games or watching YouTube videos, there's nobody outside, mowing their lawn and stuff like that. And I don't know, I feel like it's a very efficient way to do things, even though everybody else functions on a different time.
Yeah.
I don't know, I like it.
Dope.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, shit, let's see. We talked drinks, which when we got into a bunch of other stuff, I think I mentioned something about the podcast. No, let's actually, I want to dive into, let's talk about your movie channel, actually.
Okay.
You want to spill on that a little bit? Like what you've done so far? And
okay, yeah.
I think I know where it's going to lead. Let's talk about it.
Sure. So I started, my first official YouTube video as Film Phantom, as that channel branding goes, was in November. Bohemian Rhapsody, actually. I grew up, loving them and knowing them since birth. So the fact that this movie came out, I wanted to make that, this is the movie I want to start with doing this whole process. And because I procrastinated since like at least 2015. On doing this, okay, if I save enough to get this camera, then I'll start now. And then, maybe I'll start when this movie comes out. And it was just that for years. So, like, when I finally got around to it, and I did my first one, using my smartphone and literally, like, one light, after that, I was just like, I could do this now. I've spent so much time researching what to do, and now that I'm here, I'm not going to stop. So, that's what I was referring to earlier. Like, once you find something you really find important to you and what you want your future to be, like, it's very simple. So, yeah, that Bohemian Rhapsody was my first one. I've done 6 total videos, 2 of which are like top 5 and worst 5 of 2018 in terms of movies. And then my most recent was the Glass movie review. Yeah. That
I need to jump into. It's see, I want to jump into that to enjoy it, because I want to watch the film, see the review. What I want to talk about was, I think, the worst 2018. There was something in there, and I don't want to argue about it. I want to just talk about it because it's fascinating, and I definitely want to talk about, I think, movies, the role of movies, and where they're going. I mentioned this one at work today. Like, we were talking about how media is, like, it was Edson and Ethan. We were talking on the line about how, like, movies, like streaming services and long series, which are well done, are replacing the value and import of films, I believe.
Okay.
like you can tell more story in 10 episodes.
Yeah.
Right? Like imagine the original LOTR
if it was done in a limited
in like 11 episodes. Right? That's like that changes it, right?
I see what you're saying.
You know?
I feel there are certain stories and themes that can be told better in that formula.
Mm-hmm.
But like we said before, the whole streaming service thing, it feels like they've gotten down to a certain formula. The first 3 episodes, they get you sucked in, and they get you to keep watching. And then there's about a 2 to 3 episode in between that kind of filler. And then it finishes off with, like, usually what would be a solid final 3 episodes. So, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I feel like because that formula has been tried and true with other shows, those middle 3 episodes are kind of unimportant. And I feel like movies, because I do like both. I definitely do like both, because we just finished watching Punisher and I forget what else in like 48 hours. So like I definitely enjoy going and binge watching shows, but I feel like you could do both with different themes or different franchises.
Sure. Yeah. No, absolutely. My interest is like films came out, and for so long films had an impact out of theaters.
Yeah.
Okay.
On
the silver screen.
Pop culture. And
like that impact a certain way. And then TV and the import of TV expanded, and then channels, and then cable, now digital, and now it's all, and we're going 5G very soon.
Yeah.
If not already. And so like streaming has changed, I think, the access and type of media. Yeah. That's what I think it is. And so I noticed this some years ago, because I've been someone who's very resistant of things. I kind of stop and watch first. I analyze. I kind of turn away from what is in. And I watch something for a long time before I make a decision on it. Yeah, and I recognize that I'm a left-leaning person from a very right origin.
Okay.
You know, it's really weird. And my dad, he might as well be Donald Trump just painted blue. But I mean, really, like, no joke. Like, the president's politics.
Okay.
Just, he tends to vote blue. That's all.
Okay.
You know, and I'm kind of set up the same way. Whereas I'm very, like, I'm going to consider this, I'm going to think about it, and then make a decision on it. So I've always been kind of hesitant of, like, diving into watching a lot and diving into just, like, I knew people that would just waste days watching garbage on Netflix.
Okay.
You know, and it's like, that's a lot of content, I feel. It's garbage. It's just crap. It's just really shit, right? And that's something I realized, that these fillers episodes are a good example, perhaps, of there's a lack of valuable content. And maybe that can go back to something else I wanted to bring up. So this lack of good content is maybe, well, what are our options, right? Yeah. And then maybe we have too many options for a reason. Maybe not even intentionally, but maybe, you know, we're the land of the free. You know, the West, democracy, all that shit is about, you know, free.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe we have too many choices. Maybe we just think we're free. Maybe because we think we're free because we can get, you know, mustard and ketchup with the fries. Yeah. And also ranch at Cheesecake Factory, right? Yeah. You know, blue cheese even, or buffalo. Yeah. Or, you know, you got this really fancy gluten-free dressing. It's kind of goopy, like Jell-O. I don't remember what it's called, but I love to stick my sweet potato fries in it. It's the best shit. Give me it over here. Okay. So that's what I'm talking about. We have too many choices, right? Yeah. Like no. You don't need 7 different types of dressing. You need 2. Yeah. It's vinegar or blue.
You need 1, maybe.
There you go. Yeah. Pick ranch, damn it. Yeah. That's easier.
Everybody's gonna
it's like easier it. For my salad girls, okay? Like, talk to me about it. Jesus Christ, I'm in the industry. That's what happens when I have a beverage. Like, I speak quicker and I can do shit like
that. That's good. That's all right.
Ooh. Never drink on the job. It's not good for you.
Nope.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to keep that job.
Holy shit, yeah. It is weird. You know what's weird is someone pours a drink, doesn't get fired. The person that has the drink does get fired. Yeah. That's weird. That's really weird.
Yeah.
That's happened in their store before.
Really?
True.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Bartender's Last Day. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's like a procedural thing, but the server got fired and he got to like walk away from it.
Huh.
I don't think it's like on his work record or anything. Whatever.
Huh.
That's kind of screwy though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It kind of does seem screwy.
Huh. Okay, I could.
I guess I could. I'm gonna. Buck can't. Well, it's gonna stop here, kind of thing. You know, like maybe that's what they're going for, but I think that's kind of bullshit. That one was kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
Media. I think that content is a huge issue, and a lot of times people are really fascinated by genres, but the value, and there's value attached to it, but the content isn't there to fill it up.
Yeah.
And I think a great example to flesh this issue out in the wider issue of media and its effect on us and our development and what we're doing here on this planet Earth. So this is going to have a big impact, what I'm leading up to, as something to talk about. Star Wars.
Yeah.
I grew up on it. If I may, I think this is a lot of people's backgrounds, probably growing up for many generations now. Every weekend, my dad, because he's a workaholic, would go work at the office like before noon to like before evening, so a solid 6+ hours. And because my mom would be busy on the weekends, I'd get dragged along because he couldn't trust my brothers to watch me.
Okay.
I watched The New Hope, Empires, and Return of the Jedi, and had hot cocoa and pizza every weekend, Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
Like, as often as that happened.
Yeah. It
wasn't all the time, but it was...
But when it did happen, that's what you did.
Yes, and I'll say right now, not to say I have any problems with it, but that was so that my dad could then work. It's not like this was like parent time. This was distraction. This was
a form of
TV. Yeah, this was babysitting.
Yeah.
Okay, my babysitter was Han Solo and the Force and Star Wars in general. Holy shit. But like fuck, a lot of people grew up with like this big epic space opera as a fundamental block of their pop cultural heritage growing up. And so I think when the new episodes came out with George, that was hot.
Yeah. That was what I grew up on. So I feel like every generation kind of had their preference and set of beliefs on what Star Wars should be.
I see that.
You know, so well, I know, and I look back at the prequel trilogy, you know, I love it, but I know there are a lot of flaws to it. And I feel like all the people that are watching the new ones are going to be the same way about their new ones. While I will have an opinion on it, I'm not necessarily a adolescent watching these movies. So it's a different effect on my mind. You know what I mean? So I feel like those people have a less bias towards these movies because they are growing up with them, whereas people who grew up watching the original ones will have a certain bias, and the people who grew up watching the prequels will have a different bias towards it.
That says everything about all of our other systems, like politics and all the other horse shit. It's like, just let it go. Yeah. Let it go, damn it. Like,
watch it, enjoy it, and that's it.
Yeah. You know? I mean, it should be that simple. But people get, it's the value we put into it.
Yeah.
So there's a change of hands, and with it, there's a change of motive in what you're trying to do with Star Wars content.
Yeah.
So the new trilogy, Star Wars 7, 8, 9 episodes, probably the end of the Skywalker drama. And I think there's a lineup for a new trilogy in a different direction.
Yeah.
Unrelated, Force-related. And then I've heard talk about an Old Republic thing.
Yeah.
And then there's the spin-off Star Wars stories
individual movie
series. Yeah. And I think it's going to be a wider series, honestly. I think you keep hitting these one-offs, and if you're fortunate if you can then follow up. And I think
if you're good enough on a certain solo story or Star Wars story, and if it hits big, whether that's with audiences or in the box office, then they'll continue with that.
Exactly.
Story. Yeah.
And so I think and this is beautiful how you said Solo. This is going to lead in two different directions. I think the most successful one, clearly, obviously, was, and I think people were surprised, but it was a very well done film, in my opinion, was Rogue One.
Rogue One?
That was a fantastic...
Definitely.
Okay. I think they went in to redo the film in part.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the rage these days,
mm-hmm.
right? Like what's going on?
Like reshoots?
Yeah, like what's happening at the top tier where like this is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not involved in that kind of thing. I don't know enough about it to even speculate deeply on it. What I want to mention though is how it was altogether pleasing in a deeply affecting way.
Mm-hmm.
For someone who knows Star Wars or is into Star Wars or is just enjoying a story about it living or existing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of what Star Wars is so great at. I think it makes you... It's less about being human. It's more about being,
mm-hmm.
right? In this other galaxy, far away, long ago. So it gets you out of this world. So going to watch Rogue One, even not into Star Wars, and you get this... You're pulled in, right?
I feel like if you can go into a movie theater and enjoy a movie, not having knowledge of the bigger picture going on and still walk out happy, then it was a good movie. And that doesn't mean that all movies, in order to be good, have to have those criteria.
You're right.
But if you're going to go into a movie and you have no prior knowledge to anything that came before it and you still enjoyed it, then that means I feel like they did something right. You know what I mean? So, like you said, yeah.
I think with Rogue One, there's so much about that we could just jump right into. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to use that as a stepping stone to get what I want to mention is Solo.
Yeah.
The difference between the two right off the bat is that, and I know this was mentioned about the film, the people at the top wanted something to follow up Rogue One because this is great.
Yeah. But
it's great because it happens the way it does.
Yeah.
So it has to happen tragic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a tragic story is like a fundamental aspect of our bearing with our human existence. That's what I mean to kind of get to. Is that tragedy, I think, a tragic view of life seems to be the most rewarding in terms of value. You know, we went over that, I think, in podcast 3 with Ivan, Robin, and Caitlin. Oh, okay. We had a big thing where we got to we struggle. Mm-hmm. It's a big thing, and we came back to it like, okay, yeah, that's pretty legit. So, oh my god, what? Jesus Christ! Ash, incense. We're falling apart, people. We're dust. All is dust. But it's not possible, but it's beautiful the way it happens, the way it is. And I can get into more of the tragic nature of things. I think I'm probably good. I'm going to talk about tragedy in culture when Edson Venezuela appears on the podcast. Okay. He and I have read The Birth of Tragedy by Friedrich Nietzsche, and we're into philosophy. So that's something that we're probably going to dive really deeply into for all podcast listeners and anyone watching or viewing. But what I wanted to kind of come back around to with Solo and Rogue One is that Solo intentionally sets itself up for a sequel or a parallel film or something, or an additional Star Wars story. So you could go from Solo to, I don't think she's big enough, Kira. That's the main. That's the female lead. She could become her own character. You could flesh out a new story with new characters in a new world, anchoring on someone else, Darth Maul. Mm-hmm. Okay, like here's my problem with that is that Disney can't move enough out of its niche into like using dark characters in a dark world to tell their story. Like Solo, very positive, very light, and in fact, he's the good guy. The good guy. Yeah. I know Han is a good guy. I know it. I saw the movies. Yeah. So playing him that good took away from what I expect. I was expecting dirty, right? I was expecting like gritty, right? Like I saw some ideas that maybe this could have been
touched upon.
Yeah, but it was it really focused on some of the hallmarks of Star Wars, I feel, rather than kind of took a direction that would have really made a bold film. Right? Like it couldn't be tragic like Rogue One, but you could have made
a bold aspects of it better than what they presented us. Definitely.
No, I know that film's also a reshoot, right?
Oh yeah. And a change of directors.
That's right, Ron Howard.
Yeah.
And I think, who was it before? The Lego movie guys?
It was, yeah. Phil Lord, Chris Miller.
See, that, like, as I understand it was like a Western idea. They wanted to do a Western.
A Western-themed heist type movie.
See, that, like, okay, like, this, let me drop this right now. Space heist in the future, think Ocean's 11, right? Mm-hmm. Like, remake, right? That's, like, that'd be like a sharp, fun fucking film, right? Yeah. Like let's hash out with Solo and Chewie, like busting some stellar bank and you know winning the Falcon in there somehow. I don't know, like using the clearings from like I mean like you could have made the whole story about how he gets the Falcon, basically. You know, like and then like I see so much potential in what could have been. Yeah. And then also where they could go. Like obviously Kira's going to come back in the story. Maul is now reintroduced, and then Hutt is set up. Yeah. So there's 3 avenues right there. Mm-hmm. But it's probably going to just be a redo of what they already did in the first in Solo, just Solo. Yeah. That's what I see, and so I think I wanted to bring it up originally because I enjoyed it because it was kind of campy, and it kind of just brought you into that Star Wars world. And I think if you need to fix Star Wars, that's what you need. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't much more than that.
No, it wasn't.
It certainly wasn't. No. And I think that where I was going is the value factor. Like, what are you getting out of Star Wars these days?
I feel like that's a mixed bag, really. Because when Disney invests $1 billion in a franchise and a property, they expect to get their money back and more. So with that comes interference on what they think should be presented along with their brand. So when Force Awakens first came out, you know, it has its faults, and people will say it's a rehash of things shown before, but it was very good in its own way, in different ways, especially how it was shot. They brought J.J. Abrams on to do it, and regardless of whether or not it was a rehash of what was shown before, it was a good stepping off point. And then from there, they realized, we have a golden goose on our hands. We can continue to make these stories every year and continue to, make our money back and more. And I feel like they've succeeded in certain areas when it comes to that. The Force Awakens and even Rogue One. Mm-hmm. But since Solo, and it's not only like underperforming at the box office, especially internationally, but it's underperforming in the eyes of critics. They've kind of taken a step back. Okay, maybe we don't need to release one every year. We'll make our money back eventually. And I hope that they realize the gravity of which their content has an effect on the world. Because it's not a one-off franchise that disappears from the limelight. This is something that's been going on since 77. Mm-hmm. So if it has that big of an impact, and that's how you make your money, is based off of the people that have been watching since 77 and every generation since then, I think they realized, okay, maybe let's listen. And I think it took a hit to their pocketbooks to realize maybe let's listen. But I hope they kind of get their act together and realize the impact that this franchise has on the world.
I think that there's so much of an opportunity, and I think you hit a lot of good marks, and it's so weird. I'm going to use the word exploit right? Exploit. And we're living in a capitalist system, and it's a corporate behemoth, right?
Yeah.
Like, they should be able to exploit the universe of Star Wars to make tons of money with amazing stories, right? You know, like, holy shit! Like, I mean, it took moments, and like I spit off a couple wonderful directions that, you know, a different Solo could take. Like, okay, here's this. How about a Western space drama with, well, now since he's got the Falcon, Chewie and the Falcon set up, right? And, you know, it's more of like a gritty spaghetti Western, okay? A little more Quentin meets Star Wars, okay? And you make it, like, I can just totally imagine, like a cowboy bebop aesthetic in the Star Wars future, right? Like a kind of like a gritty, grimy side. Like, you just saw moments of, right? Just moments. Like, there's a whole universe in the Star Wars realm that you barely catch. Like those flyover moments, those in-between cut scenes, like these big expansive views. I love the landscape storytelling that George used. It has like the music and the landscape had a tremendous effect in his film style. And I recognize that. I didn't understand it, but I recognized it early on. And I've always recognized it. And so you take, you know, you see, you know, you're looking at what's going on screen. And so, like, there's a whole background to Star Wars that is so rich with story. With content.
Like, there's so many ways to go, because he succeeded in creating a universe. And even if he only touched upon certain aspects of it, there's so many ways that you can go. So that's why when movies like Solo come out, and you see where these stories can go, and you see the groundwork that people before them have set in order to create these characters, and they don't take that content higher or even in the same direction, but they actually go down, it's disappointing.
Very much so, yeah. Like, you see characters you love do stupid shit. And just like when stories, they occur in certain ways where something cannot happen now, and it's like, fuck up. Like, this just ruined everything. I hate you. Right? Like, you hear lots of that shit. And just, some people get fucking bent about the stupidest shit. And I think that's, like, maybe taking it too far. But, like, it does seem like some of the moves are boneheaded. I'm very curious what will happen in episode 9. I don't know if I want to speculate, even though I don't know. I am interested in fresh takes in the Star Wars universe. I think Disney could get enough storylines going that they could kind of
continue the story.
For me, is directions of content is like do a series of grittier not solo, but I mean, like, individual story.
The underbelly of
the underbelly of the Star Wars universe. That would be a hot, like it'd be weird under Disney, but, like, you know, it'd be fun. It would be like, imagine. I can't imagine an R-rated Star Wars, but imagine like a Quentin Tarantino Star Wars Western. That'd be amazing. That'd be sick. You know, that would sell. That would sell
in so many ways, like in the cantina scene, and then
it's part of the life,
the Coruscant, it's
part of the culture.
You know, giant city planet, and I mean, before Disney bought them, there was numerous projects, and not in the works, but there were scripts for them, general storyboards for many different ideas, and one of them was what you're saying. One of them was there was no main Skywalker characters, anybody from that bloodline. There was no Han Solo, but it was in the same universe. There was a show. I think they shot like 2 episodes of it, and then they got scrapped for whatever reason. So there is a groundwork, and there is somebody that came up with that idea that it just didn't go further. But I feel like that could succeed, and because I feel Disney owns it now, though, I don't know that they are bold enough to go in that direction.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
You know, they like to keep it family friendly.
Yeah, yeah.
Not everything needs to be family friendly.
Exactly.
You know?
It makes me wonder what they'll do with all those Fox properties.
Yeah.
You know, like I was a big fan of the Alien genre, Ridley Scott. Like okay, between like Prometheus and Covenant, it took a weird step, but like I like where like there's a direction, and it's like okay, like people's opinions are getting in the way of telling the story now.
Yeah.
But like I know where you're going, and it's good shit because the underlying mythology is heavy.
Yeah.
Heavy. Like, who are we? Where are we going? How valid is that?
Yeah.
Does that matter? Like, I love those questions. Yeah. So, because that comes back to existence, and I think we can tie that back into Star Wars, for example.
Yeah.
It reaches enough people and can reach more people. If you break it into subgenres, then you can continually tell stories in this rich universe that continually reach more and more and more people. And if you can do that, you can start expressing stories about, you know, how we're living, and then you can maybe do a benefit to society. Like, religions mean less now because of Star Wars today. Because the mythos of Star Wars and other imagined creative worlds fill in the space that other things used to fill in. Like, you right? Like
because Star Wars took the general ideals of, let's say, the Bible, for example, and just changed the characters and the setting. But it took the general same good versus evil mythos, but took it to space in a galaxy far, far away, and it kind of, I don't know how to explain it. It kind of made it more user-friendly, almost, if you will, for our generation, because you're looking at the same ideas, but with a different face. So I see what you're saying.
I think that by kind of hitting these marks, these mythic kind of arcs, it appeases something in us, you know, that needs this kind of content. And, you know, because it's painted up on the screen for us with color and sound and amazing scores. It hits us differently than if it was, you know, being told by a guy on a pulpit reading out of a book, right? So it's occurring differently. So the value of someone spewing religion at you is diminished compared to watching a whole mythos just expanded.
Your visuals and your auditory sensors.
Exactly. It's taking it all in. And if you're like lit on something, then like it's a surreal experience. Like you see certain films in certain ways and it blows your mind. Or if you feel a certain way and you watch a film, it can hit you in a huge way. If you see a really striking film when you're young, change the world you live. You just change how you think, see, and live. It's just media has a powerful effect, and I think that media is going to continually have this huge effect, even though we're becoming kind of aware of it, becoming conscious of its effect on us. I think that's one of my biggest interests. I want to get Edson on the podcast just to talk about media and its effect on us. But I think what I'm trying to hit on to kind of tie it back into somewhere where we started was value. And like I think Star Wars is an interesting spot right now because it's getting to a point where it's being spent and it's going to, I think, lose its value, and people will kind of fall out of it like other story. Like this will be kind of like a failed storyline, a failed world. Like we'll have to wait for another culture shocking story to hit us for us to have another potential. And that's what I mean, is that Star Wars has now gotten to the point where it's being, some people would say, I think the phrase depleted or sold out. Right? Like it's being spent. Right? Like okay, most religions, in my opinion, let's use it this way. They're spent when corruption occurs and there's abuses by the church or other organizations, and then other people are like, okay, well, your religion was horseshit because look at what you guys do and you guys practice it and your guys at the top of the chain. So what the fuck does that say about you and religion? It's a bunch of horseshit, right? That's, you know what I mean?
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So
they lose their credibility.
Yeah, so I think Star Wars, so long as it hits the mark and it's telling these huge arcing points that hit us, if it ceases to do that, and it's just it's losing all of its value, then I think it becomes kind of like an old archetype. It becomes like this old religion. It becomes like a book. You know, as if we're adding little shitty additions and little mini books inside the Bible. You know, like that's what Star Wars will become, like this old media form where we're telling these little shitty stories inside of an older, better Testament. Let's say in this example. You know, so that's what it kind of seems like, that we're getting to this point where they have to hit the mark, or Star Wars will fall into something that I think most things fall into. I think most things have their time and die. They're not sustained in the systems that they exist in. I think things have kind of lulls and they pick up, and then more often they die. They have a moment and they disappear. And Star Wars could be disappearing, and we're all just arguing about, oh, well, they're going to do a really good series next year, and they're going to finish strong with episode 9. Oh my god, Carrie Fisher is still alive on screen. Oh my god. You know, like all of that, man. It's like, what if Star Wars is already dead and has been dead? Like, part of me, is God dead? Hashtag the gay science. Hashtag Nietzsche. No, but like, are we wasting time arguing about it? About any value in Star Wars if it's already gone? You see what I mean?
I see what you're saying, yeah.
Like, I think it's an interesting subject to talk about that, because that's always happening. We're just never stopping to talk about it. Star Wars hits so many people across time and space. Like, I mean, I love seeing, like, Star Wars in Spanish on people's shirts. I fucking love that. I'm like, there you go. Like, we're crossing culture here.
I mean, it was and may continue to be a global phenomenon.
See, that's what I mean, is it is global. Fuck, no religion's done what Star Wars has done. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, definitely. Like,
fuck Scientology.
No. Fuck yes. I hate it so much. And it takes, I feel like it takes a lot for a group or society to do, not even to me specifically, for me to hate them. And they're just awful people.
Oh yeah, I've met a few.
Yeah,
harassing people.
I feel like not everybody in this organization are like that, because not everybody's that deep into it. But to put your head in the sand and ignore what's happening is almost equally as bad as committing what the people on top are doing themselves.
You're right. It's kind of like a self willing suicide almost. Like you're tying yourself up and throwing yourself in with a sinking ship. It seems like that's what it seems like. And I wonder, like, if that's probably all religions. And in fact, we can then tie back religion in the same way that we're talking about Star Wars. Like, like we're talking about Star Wars. What, 76? You said maybe.
Yeah.
So
77.
Not even 100 years old, and we're maybe saying how it could already have died, right? Even though it may go on for a while. What if any major religion, I'm not going to say any, let's just say any major religion, there's not so many major ones, let's just say any of them are already dead. And we're just living with the echo and the shadow and the remnant. You know, the chiseled and worn statue that, you know, is no longer
stood for something.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, how many? And here's how I'll get off the religious bandwagon and bring it back to something a little more temporal for everyone living here in America. What if rather than a religion, what if a idea, form of government, and a people are already dead, and they just don't know it, and their name is America?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely is not, in my opinion, what was devised almost 300 years ago.
It seems like everything we're taught, for example, I got a public education, and my college education threw out a lot of that shit.
Yeah.
And then the living in the real world kind of brought it all together and worked it all out for me. How about you?
I still feel that even though it is not what was composed, so many years ago by the founding fathers and what they devised, and maybe it's not even ideal in our own eyes of what we want it to be, I would still rather live here than pretty much anywhere in the Middle East or down below us in Mexico. It's just, it's not West, but it's the Wild West in those places. They kill you, they never see you again. Nobody bats an eye. And that's not look, people from other countries, I'm not putting this on you. I'm sure you're great people. But as an infrastructure government type thing, I still feel safer here than I do in other countries.
Okay.
So I'll put it there.
No, that's fair. That's totally fair.
Yeah.
That's totally fair. Absolutely. I'm this was really great, by the way. Excellent choice.
Good, I'm glad.
Like, I'm torn up. Like, I don't want to... I'm well over the place in my life where I think, like, we gotta tear it down.
Yeah.
No. It's already built up. Let's
patch it up.
Let's patch it up. Let's refit it. Let's cut it down to size. Well, size to do what? Ooh, that's maybe the critical question. What are we doing? That's what I think the big issue is that everyone wants to fight about what we should do and how to change things as they are. And well, wait. How about where we're going? That'll dictate what we are and what we do. Yeah. So I think that's a big issue. I think we need to figure out this whole empire, global police thing. Like, are we trying to dominate the world? Are we trying to befriend the world? Are we trying to get into outer space? Are we trying to kill ourselves? Like, I'm not content with facilitating the top 1%, simply staying the top 1% continuously into human culture, perpetuum, future, etc. That the rest of us are then expended like chaff for. That doesn't seem to make any sense to me whatsoever. It seems like we could probably more efficiently manage the entire human race in our future and make it off-world to other planets and have a better future if we work together, but that wouldn't serve those with the highest.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's an us and them thing, and it's like, you just fucking hate the rich. No, not it at all. I think people get this problem mixed up. People have a really big issue. People really get tripped up thinking money and wealth is power. And that's not true.
No.
It's a tool. It is a power, but that's not like power is fucking power. And you have power when you deal in power, like in how people deal in money.
Yeah. Like
money would probably be one realm of power in your tool belt of power, right? Like that. Like there's people who are fucking operators, right? They own, control, and move shit. And I mean, those people are only decision makers. They're not even moving their empire.
They're not making decisions.
Like they're somewhere at the very fucking top. Like that's who I am kind of arrayed against. And honestly, I'm probably opposing these people so I could probably slide into their shoes, if only to operate the system for everyone else.
Yeah.
You know, like not sacrifice myself, but you know, I want to be that management figure. You know, like at work. You know, like I just want the fucking things to run right.
Yeah.
Run this food, damn it! It's getting cold.
And even beyond the food, it's just everything. You know. I feel like it's probably been like this for a while, but it's probably the first time I've really seen it in the past 8 years or so that I've been able to vote. It's just, it's not one side or the other, and whether or not you choose to vote one side or the other, the people in both parties are bickering at each other like the school children.
Yeah.
And they don't have our interests at heart, either side. They want to get their agenda seen at whatever cost, whether that's what's going on now or what was going on probably 30 years ago. And I don't really know how you can change that, like, at all. And you know, a part of me wants to say, you know, someone can come in from a third party and run, and you know, they can come into party and into power and change things, but that's not logical, and that's not true, because the people within these two parties have so much money and so much power to squash you before that's even a chance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's disheartening. So you almost have to live within this two-party system and, like, be okay with it.
And see, I think that causes a fundamental problem with life, because you look at it as like a compromise system. It's like, fuck, this is what I have to live with. So, like, fuck, I'm gonna, like, you know what? I'm gonna throw a fucking brick through this this window on Main Street, you know, because it's fucking nice.
Yeah.
Because it's fucking nice, we don't need to bother ever putting up cameras. So because we don't put up cameras, I have this opportunity to smash this great fucking window on Main Street, because you know what? Our system just don't fucking work. So fuck it, I don't give a shit. I'm not getting a cop for it. I'm gonna fucking ruin part of our beautiful city just because shit doesn't fucking work. Because I was set up to believe that things were ideal.
Yeah.
That life is right.
Yeah.
That after this game we go to a permanent, never-ending paradise game, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like it's all screwy, right? Like, you're born deceived and then have to live with resentment.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we've come to a point where we have to bear with so many truths, I feel, that you can't pull the wool over someone's eyes anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like, holy shit, like, you've got to deal with so much these days.
Yeah. Because we live in an age where there's cameras and there's audio recorders and there's social media everywhere. You can't escape it. So at this point, it's harder to hide your agenda and your true self in the shadows. But I feel like even with our progress in that, both sides are still getting away with whatever they want and still getting voted in.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just, eventually it's going to get to the point where something's got to change.
I think so.
You know? Especially with, you know, it's the same thing, it's a metaphor with the bugs. When you shine a light, there's nowhere else to go. Like, I can see you, and I can see what you're doing. So I feel like at a certain point, it's going to get to where we see everybody's bullshit, and we call it on them, and they pay for their actions. And therefore, we vote somebody else in, or we vote a new law in, or whatever the case may be. And I feel like it has to get to that point eventually, just because of the state of our technology, I hope. Or it could be the reverse, and, you know, they use it to spy on us more. Who knows?
I think I think that's always the case, is that when new technology comes, it makes advances because of, like, all these new opportunities, and then the powers that be start to then, like, well, we could also then use it this way. So there's always like a counteracting force, I think to retain power and then, opportunity is good. Innovation is fundamentally just good for us. So I'm all for new ventures. I'm actually, like, for future note, I am super pro business. I'm against corruption. I'm against, unfair wages. I'm against wasting the environment. But I'm like pro business. Like, I want to make it easy for business to run. Like, I mean, I don't see why. See, I think part of the problem is that there's all these social agendas and ideas about how government needs to be run. And these ideas, and we talked about ideas and values before, how they're generally horseshit. Right? Like, these ideas are determining how we then spend our budget, our tax money, our money we work to create. And it's incredible how it's getting thrown away a lot of the times. Right? It's just like, you're not doing good here, what you're doing, right? Like, this agency is no longer working, and the pensions are depleting the funds anyways, and you're blowing this cash in another department, actually. Like California is a prime example of that issue.
We get taxed so
yeah. It's ridiculous.
Like,
and we don't see the return.
I've never received a tax refund from the state.
I can't agree with how the money is spent, and it's spent poorly. Just I can't stress that enough. It's just spent poorly. Give me a list of everything we put our money on here in California, and I'll get the hatchet out and the scalpel. Like, I'll tear it up and fine tooth the motherfucker, because I think you have to be willing to make a big cut. But then also have the nuance to be very careful about what you're willing to spend money on and how you apply it. And I'm so sorry to say, but, like, I think we'll have to turn to privatization to get out from under all these huge expenses and these, like, expenses that are occurring. Like, pension is like, that's a huge one, because it's like, it's just gonna grow, for example, right?
At a certain point, like, the money coming in does not match the money that needs to go out. So it's like, there's a problem there, and I've got some family that are also, like, they're beneficiaries of some of these things, and it's like, motherfucker, like, you're getting juiced off me, son of a bitch, and, like, you're living out of state. What you're getting Cali money. And you're living fat rat out of state. Like, that bugs the shit out of me. This person got a bad deal in regards to some other stuff that happened, but it's just like, fuck, that's... With that in specific,
it's like, god damn, that... And it's like, people, they know they get a good deal here, and, like, California's got it... People can complain, but California's got it going on compared to the rest of America.
It's just disheartening when you're losing close to at least 30% of what you should be earning, and you still see, like, the 5 freeway. It's been in construction for like 15, 20 years. High-speed
rail. Right?
It really doesn't... when they want to get things done, they get it done. You know what I mean? Like, you look downtown, the highest building there was done in 3 years. They got it done. Like, a whole building with electricity and plumbing and businesses that everybody can see in the skyline. But something as simple as adding one lane to one freeway can take 15 years.
I think is that it's interesting how we come back to all these choices and freedoms, is that we have these freedoms, and, maybe we've I think it's interesting, like, some people take this view that, like, we need to get away from one leader. And I agree. But then we also then require kind of that one central leader to make those decisions and move us. Like, okay, let's, like, we live in you and I work in a service environment where the manager, and this is the phrase I've heard in Cheesecake before, impacts the shift. Some people do, some people don't. Some people carry a team this way, some people do not. And you see those people in both teams act either way. You know, there's just some that go above and beyond. There's some people just like things to work a certain way.
Yeah.
And then some people just don't operate like that. And I think that right now, very often, we would always love a go-getter. Just those are so rarely actually trying to get elected or work out in the system, or, you know, they know the right people.
Yeah.
We brought this up with the podcast with Ivan and Robin and Caitlin, I think episode 3 for Darkheart. We touched on how effective, good managers, just as human beings, let's say. Let's not even like not
just
food
their
managers.
effect on humanity and your mood when you're at work, regardless of the policy.
Yes, just their effect on life and your life. It's not. They're kept at bay from the reins of power, from the reins of affecting the world. So good management is prevented from managing well or doing better, because that would then destabilize the system, destabilize the power that being the 1%, or any other powers. Again, it's just the power and the powerful that I'm talking about. You know, and again, that's not evil. That's just life.
Trying to get a certain viewpoint and attitude to the masses. Yes.
And I think I want to also stress again, I think I try to say it, I want to stress it, is the power aspect. Is that even that, the powerful, the 1% are not evil, and those who oppose them are not good. Those aren't real. Power is something deeper, more grand, and
it's something
potent.
It's more than just the basic good and evil.
It's to have a grasp on power, you have to be able to exist and see and understand beyond good and evil as a being, not simply even human. So, like, I mean, that's a whole. I'd love to invite you.
That's a great topic.
Dude.
I mean, like, that's why
great.
I say things like movies are more impactful, in my opinion, than what streaming services offer. And maybe eventually it'll change. But like what we were saying, good versus evil. Good versus evil is an idea that's been around obviously since forever. Since you look at the most basic religions, and that's something that was always touched upon. But I feel like with the evolution of society and writers and screenwriters and directors, even movies, even you go see literal comic book hero movies, they depict the people in those movies in different shades. So you can go to a movie and you think you're watching a basic superhero movie, but they give you such a complex look into a character that even a villain you could end up supporting, because it's not heroes and villains. It's not. There are, don't get me wrong, there are people that are definite, like, shitty, bad people, and you can label them as such, but when you are given somebody's backstory and somebody's point of interest and what they want to get across and what their agenda is and how they got to that point, then you kind of look at them in a certain way.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely. I think outside of movies and popular culture, we see that, and that's movies can reflect popular culture, and that's why I think they move us. So I think a real world example we see often is types that are represented in music, like rock stars. Like rock stars have this otherworldly kind of mad kind of
attitude.
Like just like, you know, like this who is this fucker up on stage, right? Like think Jim Morrison, like he kind of worked out a space as an artist, as a villain. And in fact, his group in the band even was to kind of mark himself out as a villain. Right? He'd even make it work with the guys he was in the band with. Right? And then he turned himself into a alcoholic. Right? And so, like, that's super uncool, right? Like, it's, and look at the president, right? Everyone, like, isn't he a Democrat? haven't you been a Democrat your entire life? Like, what the fuck is going on? Like, really, what is going on here? Like, how did you change at the end of that, right?
Yeah.
Same kind of thing. Like, I mean, he has probably always been and decided to be the villain. He's decided to play it that way, to kind of wrap yourself up in sarcasm, in fakeness, in the horse shit of life, and just, you know, grin and get along with it. You can be a villain and not be evil.
No, yeah.
You know what I mean? You get what I mean? Like, people called the president evil. No. Like, you know, that's a really loaded word, and so you have to reserve it for evil when it shows its face, and I think that can happen. But it's not President Trump, and it's not a lot of what you think it is.
Because I feel like that's a perfect example of how basic people like to depict and categorize people. A great majority of, I would say, society would depict, let's say, Barack Obama, for example, as a hero, and President Trump as a villain.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you need to see past what they present to you as who they are trying to present to you. As smooth talking or as brash as they are, and look at what they're doing. Because at the end of the day, like, you could have the greatest actor who has no political background go up there and spout out a script to you. And if they can win you over, but do all this crappy shit behind the scenes, you don't bat an eye because you like him as a person. And the other way goes around. He could be a really crappy person, but he might be doing good, but you will never admit that he's doing good because you hate him as a person. You know? And it's like, you need to look past certain things and see what's happening, as opposed to... And it's hard, though, because that's who we are as people. You know, we meet people, somebody's coming into new at work, and we will analyze them and determine whether or not we're going to like this person within a 10-minute span.
I want to say right there, and everyone for our work will know this, and I think anyone who's seen, like, new employees come in, fresh meat, right? Like, that's what people are thinking. Like, we just got 3 new desk people, and we saw the interviewees come through, and each person who did get the position, we're like, there's the winner. Like, we knew. We saw who, like, so there's certain things that you can see in other people, right? And then people will then also surprise you.
No, yeah, definitely.
Right? So it goes both ways. I know it very well. I am... Do you mind giving me a slug? Yeah, I'll take a slug. And you mind juicing me up just a little bit, too? I need a little bit sweet.
You got it.
I go through... My dysphoria affects me all the time, every day. And, like, when I can just chill out, I love it. Whether that's, you know, like, oh my god, I get to go to use the restroom. I get to actually, like, relax for a second now.
Yeah.
Right? So people, like, I see it on their faces almost every table back. It's stressful, you know? But I love them as human beings still, and I still smile, and I'm trying to generate as much warmth, and, like, hey, I'm just trying to help you out, like, I hope you enjoy yourself, really.
Yeah.
I have nothing against you guys. Like,
why
don't you just have a seat and have a good time? And a lot of the times people will, like, they recognize that the way I carry myself, the way I seem to know, I know what's going on.
Yeah.
So if someone needs something done, they'll immediately turn nice, reach out, and, hey, can you help me out? Or, hey, can you get this, right? And that's always been the way it's been. People recognize that I'm someone that can help them. So isn't that, like, such an interesting thing where, you know, we're talking about what you can expect out of people, and then people will then also surprise you.
Yeah.
And then people are like, they're obviously seeing that I can help them, but then they're also prejudging me.
Yeah.
Right? So they can see that I'm useful, very useful.
But they can flip a switch to get what they need.
Yeah, right. Like I'm gonna look at this person, and because I have this connotation that I shouldn't like them because they're different, because they're wrong, I'm then therefore not going to like them. they're unnatural. But this person seems to fucking understand how shit works here, so I'm going to reach out and be really polite right now. Hey, I'm so sorry, can you help me? And that's exactly, you know, what I see happen.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, I can really get into it, but that's like fundamentally what I think probably happens everywhere. And I think I had this discussion with someone else at work. Edson brought this up. He's reading The Gate Science by Friedrich Nietzsche. And he's getting to this point. He got to a point where he explained this large point, and I reduced it. But Edson was explaining how we're all just kind of self-interested in a self-interested way. We're all kind of using each other to use each other, and we're kind of just bearing with our using each other in politeness and how we function in society. It facilitates this power play, right? This actual play of power between all of us.
Yeah.
Right? And the homeless might be one example of people who are
not able to participate.
They're not participating in the system. They survive off the scraps of our power system. And we use tokens, green paper tokens, to advance our time in the power play system. Right? So like once you start looking at the system and reduce it, then you start to understand the strangeness of the whole system, right? Yeah. So we're all playing with each other for tokens to get by day to day, to continue playing in our free time. Like it's starting to get a little nuts when we start talking about it, right? Like it's like, oh my god, it's crazy. It's getting crazy here.
I mean, I feel like because of where we work, we interact with people from around the world sometimes. So I can see that even our societal system is very different from even people from a country, you know, a couple hours away.
That's true. Actually, I just thought about that today. Yeah. In fact, like my situation, it's weird. Like a lot of Mexican folks are actually like much more chill with me. Than like a whole bunch of other groups, and that's not to single out groups and to say like
I get what you're saying, because they're in other countries or in other societies, whether that's a different country or just a different community, other things are more commonplace. So in it being more common, it is no longer strange, and in no longer strange, you no longer treat it different.
I think a good example is I think very recently it was Martin Luther King Day. Like last week, Monday, like a week ago. Yes, tomorrow. A week ago tomorrow. My pardon.
Yeah.
My dad was just retelling me a story. I've heard this one before about how I think he went to somewhere in the South. Oh, it's like a really well-known southern city. Yeah, it's like it's a state. Yeah, he was doing work as an engineer, and he was going with this Indian guy. I don't think Savannah, but I want to say somewhere around there. Like Georgia. Yeah, that part of the South. Okay. And they're doing work on a building. You know, they're from out west. They stop and get lunch somewhere. And like all the talking stops. Diner, basically, just a diner. All the talking stops. This guy's Indian, but he's black as night. Black, right? Totally Indian, though, right? From India. All the talking stops when they enter. Waitress comes up. After about 10 minutes of touch-and-go service, the waitress, out loud to everyone else, and it's like been super silent for like 10 minutes. Except from eating. It's alright, he ain't a... right? He's from India. Everyone eases up, relaxes. This is in 1990. Things have not changed all that much. Yeah. Right? But in different times and places, things do change, do become more normal, and that they do elsewhere allows those ripples to move elsewhere in time. So you have to kind of throw a big rock and wait for the ripples to hit you. you know, like to see the effects, honestly.
Yeah. No, definitely. And that's even just within our own country.
Oh yeah.
Imagine
oh god.
just different countries in general.
Like
because, no, go ahead.
I'm always thinking about how I think we're so beautiful. Like we're able to like, oh, this culture's great, or this culture's great, or these people are great, or these people are great inside of this culture, or these people are amazing inside of this culture, or these people did most successful at this time in this culture back then, or this small subgroup had this amount of power and effect that only 10 people changed all of history, or this one person had this big effect, changed all our lives, and like holy shit, like we impact each other all the time, and we want to like pick out, make special, highlight, you know, like we want to divide ourselves. And yet I'm always then stepping back to look at that whole system of thinking and like, well, you're creating a system all over again of just us. Okay? So instead of saying Americans are great, how about humans are great? Let's make Earth great again. And let's make humanity great again. That's my thing. I do my part. I know I've probably gotten hate over this. I do some MAGA hashtags, but I always put next to it the hashtag "Make Americans Great Again." My MAGA is "Make Americans Great Again," because in my I'm gonna go full Thor on this one. A place is a people. All right, it'd be like that's what's you know. It's like. Yeah. Right? Like,
no,
what blew up at the end of Ragnarok? It was, no Valhalla. It was, what do they call that place? Where's Thor from? Someone tell us.
He's from...
Asgard, that's it! Dude, it's this gin. this gin's getting to us.
Delicious. And ideally... if that could work, that would be great. And I would, but that's the thing. Not everybody has the same attitude and mindset as people, not even just from this country, people like us specifically do. And that's not to say, I'm not going to point out specific cultures or specific races or specific countries or anything like that. But nobody has the same way of seeing things. Nobody always has the same way of viewing things, or and that way of seeing things and viewing things affects your behavior and affects your actions and affects your agenda. So this whole coexist, raise up humanity is great in theory, and I would love for that to work. But there is always the counter to that will do anything to make sure it does not.
Isn't it so incredible that there is a force that will do anything, and it's very often always at the height of all power that this force seems to manifest itself, that in fact all power, when established, becomes atavistic, meaning that it kind of turns and kind of corrupts itself in time. And so it seems that through space and time, all pinnacles of power shift because they're continually corrupting and new powers rise to overturn them, much like in popular culture and Star Wars from earlier, the balance with the Force, right?
Yeah.
Like that's really that's what that's hitting at. It's
and
it always hits on the good guy note. Well, we were talking about the villain thing earlier, right? Like I mean, I'm trying to think of like a good series where the bad guy is kind of like Dexter. Dexter was the first really big show for a while, I think, where the bad guy, like you were rooting for the bad guy.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
I mean,
he was a villain. Murdered people.
I mean,
you know what I mean? Like just the way that the story is twisted. That's all I mean.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
There's an inversion, and that's what made that show so good, right? That
it twists on your expectations of what
societal norms are, or should be, or what we're taught they should be. Like, I mean, if you weren't if you didn't fit in a square box, you were wrong, right? You know, like, I mean, you could end up at a certain point in time, in a certain place, if you didn't fit in a box, square, you went in the madhouse. You didn't come out unless you were sterilized.
Yeah.
Or missing part of your brain.
Yeah.
Right? Or you never left.
Or you,
yeah. Ooh.
Yeah. So at least, I mean,
that's worse
not
than
to
death.
say that that still does not go on.
Oh, God.
But I feel like we've progressed enough to at least test our boundaries on what we believe should be and should not be, and at least we question those things.
I think that it's absolutely good that we do question continuously, and I think we also need to have. I think what's crazy is that we need to have these conversations. These conversations, I think, get shouted over by the loud voices that question, and so you and I can cite. Yes, we do need those voices that question, and yet you and I can also then come together like, well, we also need to have this discussion where the questioning is important, but understanding why you need question is really important too.
Yeah.
So you need to understand that there's a system, right? And I think that's kind of like a big part of this conversation is that we've gotten to these heights of power and talking about power and power systems. That's kind of like the end all be all for us.
Yeah.
Right? Like truth, it's kind of like it's out the window right now.
It's gotten to the point where you can present something as plainly and as factually as possible, and it will always be tested and questioned, but in a negative way.
I think truth is kind of like it's
manipulative.
Yeah, you can
malleable.
Really like. Okay, we've discovered that our politics have been a house of cards. Now, I'm trying to think. Was it Oliver Stone's Untold History of America? Beautiful series on Netflix. I enjoyed it very much. Everything in there, I already knew. I enjoyed his series
of it.
As a media presentation, as a history major, as a history buff, as someone who's interested in culture and politics, and everything he touched on, I'm already interested in. I've seen it all. I grew up watching it. Everything he explained, the narrative, all of it, I had accumulated naturally through what I had gone through growing up and my interests through life. So, like, wow, like this was a great way of condensing what I've picked up in 30 years. And like, this is great. Like, let's get this out there. Now, I think you also need to then understand the flip side of that. Like, this is a narrative yet again inside a wider system.
Yeah.
And so, even though he does a great job to kind of like, okay, let's cut the horse shit and realize this has been a house of cards for a long time, that Trump and Obama and Bush that are just stepping stones. They're all house of card people. Right? Like, there were forces and powers moving things always.
Yeah.
Like, the series starts
before there was an established government. There was always people moving behind the scenes. And maybe it wasn't as maybe it wasn't always as behind the scenes and puppet master as it is now. Maybe it was more forthcoming and straightforward. But there was always somebody calling the shots. And
new people wanting to call the shots.
Exactly.
Maybe that's power begets power seeking people. Yeah, that's just it. It's not just resistance. It's that those who maybe naturally inhabit the realms of power, who themselves are powerful or who hunger for it, I think that they have a sense for power, and they're like, okay, whoever's at the top is rocking the boat. I can shake it a little more to like he might capsize. Holy fuck! Like I might be the captain next.
Yeah.
Fuck! I'm gonna threaten the whole fucking ship. Right? Like I want to be captain. I'm gonna fuck who's going over. Fuck.
Yeah.
Right? That was too many managers I've worked with. Those are real human beings who didn't give a shit about you as an employee, who didn't give a shit about their own boss, okay? Who didn't give a shit about the relationships that they seemingly invested in must have faked, they weren't real. Like, fucking power-hungry people, same thing we were just saying.
But on a
smaller level. Yeah. Like, no, that remember that thing that happens in the heights of power where someone will do anything to access, to use, to exist in power. Mm-hmm. Power, not money, corrupts.
Yeah.
Lord Acton. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. That's very powerful adage. I think it's spot on. I think that what's an example? Because we have to touch on this subject because I think it's important. When you go through public education, the founding fathers seem like they're legit white dudes.
Yeah.
Right? They're not dicks.
No.
You know, like, and then you find out later on, motherfuckers own slaves. Motherfuckers were like the elite. Motherfuckers were the 1%. Motherfuckers, right? But okay, like I can already sense all the resistance right here. No, I'm gonna be wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna play on their side because, like, just like we were talking about, that behind the scenes power has always existed. Like,
yeah, definitely.
Couple thousand self-interested guys over in America realized they probably had a better deal grouping together,
governing themselves.
Yeah, than, the stiff old rulback or their cronies, right? Like, what's worse than, like, some dick at the height of power than some mid-level asshole
enforcing
exactly, right? So it's like, fuck the redcoats, dude. Fuck those, like, fuck those guys standing in front of Buckingham with those stupid hats, right?
Yeah.
Fuck the redcoats. I take that back. Those hats are super cool. But fuck those old school redcoats.
I could never do that job.
That is a
statuesque.
Yeah, I couldn't. No. Like I'd be too busy saying fuck you. Right. Too busy.
But I mean, that's why I feel like Star Wars. Let's say, like how we started this conversation, can so genuinely and accurately reflect what's going on in the present. Because it did start with the original trilogy, and it was good versus evil. And that was it. There was tones, and there was complexity to characters, but that was it.
Yeah. Definitely.
So now, when they show you Rogue One, and they show you The Last Jedi, and while some of those movies have flaws, they present to you the rebellion is not always the good guy. The rebellion will kill and do what they need to do to get their point and their agenda across. And the same thing happens on the other side. And they're both just trying to stay at the top. Where if you have a balance of both and compromise, there is no need for bloodshed and there is no need for swiping at the top as opposed to just getting along and finding balance.
Isn't it so messed up?
Yeah.
Dude, that's crazy. See if you can riff on that for a second. I'm going to jump up real fast to use the restroom.
Sure.
We're at 1:40 right now, unless you want to slow down and stop, or I can use the restroom, maybe knock out a little extra more time, or how do you feel?
Yeah, no, we could do that.
Okay, give me just a minute. Go ahead and riff on Star Wars if you want for a minute.
Sure, okay.
They'll listen if, like, they can't see me still. You know what I mean? I'll be right back, okay?
Okay, yeah. Let's see. So yeah, like we were saying before, I would say that the evolution of Star Wars and the reflection and parallels to society is, as we were saying before, it almost always accurately reflects what is going on in whatever society. So you look back at the original trilogy and it's good versus evil because that was the mindset of society at the time, and so it is a basic good versus evil formula. But you look at current movies, or not current movies, but newer, more modern movies like Rogue One, and you see they give more complexity to each side, and you see that the rebellion, which you always saw as the good guy, will kill and steal, and just commit violence in order to have a means to an end, essentially, in order to overthrow what they see as more evil as what they're doing. So, this good versus evil, heroes versus villains formula, while it is still essential to modern day storytelling, it has evolved in order to give greater complexity to the characters that they're presenting. And while you'll always have a side that you will root for, the reasons in which you do so have changed. And that's why I think Rogue One and even The Last Jedi, because The Last Jedi, in my personal opinion, you go to watch it, there are many parts of that movie that are not that are not enjoyable to watch, and that should have maybe gone in a different direction. But the overall idea that the Jedi are all-knowing and pure, and that the Empire or the First Order is evil, is no longer a basic A versus B, and more of a let's combine the both and get a C. So I would say that that's why movies like Solo are disappointing, because you see an evolution of a franchise go from basic good versus evil and evolve into, you're seeing one side versus the other, not necessarily good versus evil, and you pick a side that you're rooting for. And that's why Solo is so disappointing, because it didn't take on the same evolution from 77 to now, but really just gave us a movie that could have been presented in 77 and shows no further evolution in our palettes for movies, and kind of stuck to the same slapstick adventure. And while that's always fun, we expect more out of these movies.
See, that's such a great point, and it's kind of why I brought up the Cowboy Bebop thing earlier, is that where Star Wars is kind of landing, is going to maybe crash, in my opinion, could be where it gets lost making subcategory films, trying to appease niche audiences, missing the mark, misreading reviews and critics, and just like filling about, and it just keeps like making crap sequel stories, right?
Yeah.
That's where it peters out and it dies. Or they hit the mark by hitting those. It's kind of, it's not exactly the same, but like Marvel has kept it fresh by using different types of media stories to tell their pre-existing franchise worlds, right?
Yeah.
Right, like some of the stories like have turned straight comedic, right? Like they've got off any type of like origin tragic story, and they've gone like, I mean, Ragnarok, I couldn't believe how much I laughed. Right? Like it's like, and it's like the contrast of tragic stories and mythos with the comedic is huge in human culture. And I think most people don't actually understand the contrast between the two and the impact on human development, sum total. And so I think that they're just like, oh, this is a nice change. Like, no, this is working for a very specific reason. It's the same reason why you're entranced when, you know, the first Thor occurs, and you're mesmerized by the golden walls, and Anthony Hopkins got a fucking helmet on, right? And he's missing an eye, and like this shit is blowing your mind just as much as, you know, Thor laughing his ass off in Sicaria, right? Like at the ass end of the universe, out the devil's anus, right? It's great. I love it, right? Like it's weird.
But
it's fucking weird.
But it is weird. But it makes sense that they're so closely related that you need both. If you look at some of the best dramas and you look at some of the best comedies, they always have essences of both.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
you can't have one without the other.
Yes.
Some things are not funny unless you have a backstory as to who the people and characters are, and sometimes you can't feel as bad for some people if you didn't have the happiness as to why it's so tragic and why it's so dramatic, because they are polar opposites, but you need one to have the other, because if it's always
Yeah.
sad, it's eventually not going to be sad anymore because you
Right.
don't remember the happy.
Right.
You
Right.
know?
There does need to be a contrast. I think all stories, if they're good,
They have a
they
balance of
balance
both.
that. And if there's an overarching storyline,
Mm-hmm.
you then have to balance that out, right?
Yeah.
Like, look at old mythic structures and what their stories contain. Mostly, it's like, like look at the Greeks, for example. Like,
Yeah.
we mostly remember them for their certain feats, right?
Yeah.
Like Hercules. Like, there's certain like figures who did these things,
Yeah.
and then so on and so forth as
Mm-hmm.
things kind of come. And oh shit, I was about to go somewhere with that and lead somewhere, but things are catching up to me. What does it go somewhere with what you were talking about? Oh, we were talking about where Star Wars could go.
Uh-huh.
And I think I was discussing how I think it might peter out, and I said there could be another direction. I think there's obviously where we would like it to go,
Mm-hmm.
and this says a lot, I think, for our culture in that regard. Is that like I brought up like the Cowboy Bebop thing,
Yeah.
and a big part of the Cowboy Bebop, if you watch this anime series Cowboy Bebop, I didn't get into it much later because when you're younger, people are like Cowboy Bebop's the shit. I feel like you really know anime because I'm a '90s kid, late '80s millennial, pardon me, so '88. But of course, then I turned away from what people were telling me to watch, and so then I only caught it this last year watching it with my kid.
Okay.
Fucking amazing, dude. Fucking amazing. Cowboy Bebop. If you're not into anime, watch this. This will get you into anime. And hopefully you'll be able to navigate the better ones. Because there's, like, kiddie shit, which has its place in time. It's very enjoyable.
Yeah.
And then there's, like, holy shit, like, why is this animated? This should be, like, a real story, and I should already know about it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's what I think some anime is. And for me, I caught Evangelion pretty young, or when I was a teenager. And so that, like, melted my mind by the time I got to the end of it, and I delved into more things after that. But with Cowboy Bebop, I'm trying to remember back to how the sequences occur. But like how like there's like a mid commercial line, or there's like a screen that says the title and like a subtitle perhaps, like what's going on maybe. Something like that was going on with Cowboy Bebop, and it was somewhere. It wasn't even the end of the series, I think, but it was talking about like building something, a new frontiers in space, or a new fortune, or I don't know, but it spoke to everything about what I see in the show. It like these weren't shining heroes,
They're just
but they weren't bad guys either, right? Like they were just living
people.
Yeah, and in conflict with, and challenging and moving with at times fate, right? Like fortune dictated a lot of their circumstances, and good fortune, turned their way, and not their way several times actually. Like it was perfect that it was as brief as it was, because it was perfect in itself. Like that was hands down. I saw it later in life, but like for me, because I saw Ava and Ellie earlier, pardon me, and it had a deep effect on me. Oh my god, I would say it's the best.
It's a brief, concise statement as to the state of what you're watching, but it's not not an over exposition. Bringing you along, holding your hand, explaining things, but it is a concise statement as to what you're watching, and then you keep going.
I love everything it's trying to get across. Like I think if you were able to just put yourself in a really like open frame of mind and just watched it, you could learn a ton. Just how you feel, because I think every story was so I wouldn't exact. I mean, things did mix, like things were related, but I think like so much of it was non-related at times that you could just probably melt from episode to episode and just like delve into these like different modes of thought and being, just looking at what's going on screen, because it was such a unique, diverse opportunity of looking at life, our potential for life. You know, these characters all had like a lot of history to them. Yeah. And like, actually, oh my god, like I want more. Like you couldn't do a live action version, and do it justice. I think. Like I don't know.
Yeah, because
and people get upset that way too.
It takes a big budget in order to tell stories in that way, because that is the money and cost of things. So in a way, this is really the only medium in which it could be presented. Maybe eventually, somebody brings it along and does it, and it might not be as good as the source material, but
if it's popular enough, you might see a reiteration.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think a great example that all people can agree on is Battlestar Galactica, the most recent one being fantastic, of course, compared to the original.
Yeah.
Part of me. And then I know like the most recent one, of course, has its own critics, I'm sure, but I thought it was fantastic. Well, a lot of it, not all of it, a lot of it was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was a really great show. And like the Cylons, I too have a plan. This podcast is itself a plan of a larger plan. And stay tuned. I think that plan will be unveiled when Edson joins this podcast at a later date. Because this is part of a larger plan, but we'll get into that. But Dune right now, for example, I think is being rehashed as a film. And if you know the backstory on that film's development history, going back way back to the origin, when it was a Jodorowsky attempt that was failed, and then you got the first version of Dune, which was probably we all know it, but it's not great.
It's more notorious than it is famous for its reception.
Yeah, I grew up with the idea that was this incredible movie, and I didn't see it till I was late teens. I'd already read the first couple books, so I had a big idea of the Dune world inside my mind already. And so it was much older. Okay, like I'm in my late teens. That film was like in the 80s. Horribly dated too. Wasn't even
and at that point.
Yeah. Right. So it's awful. So I'm well on board, like the hate train. I'm like, this does not do, like, I get
the direction,
what they're trying to do. I get it. I totally get it.
But it's one thing to have an understanding as to what they're trying to do, and another thing to be accepting.
Right. And I think people, and again, much like probably how people view other human beings and judge them and prejudge them, people who don't even know the universe judged the hell out of this film and burnt it. You know, they trashed on it. What's really crazy is that you hear things like that in time, and it changes over time. And some films do or don't get that. But I think people let it go over time that they're willing to remake it. Now, I think there's two different examples. One of them being, someone did this comparison article that I really enjoyed, talking about this. They're trash talking in the same way that they're trash talking on Prometheus. But the original review that this person was going over was for Alien when it came out originally 30 years before. And so like, so look at Prometheus, it's getting the same exact type of hate, but maybe 20, it's later. Give it the time. Maybe it's deeper points. Maybe, these things about it are actually what make it a phenomenal film. Right, and you just have not given it time to really identify that, because you're responding in this, like, someone, this is no way the same thing, but in the same way that, I've changed interactions with guests, just leading them back from the desk to a table due to my injury, so I'm limited in what I can do sometimes. And, I can tell when it's genuine, and that's great. I love that. That's fantastic. I love changing people's opinions. It feels good.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just trying to spread good vibes, honestly. Yeah. I'm just trying to do that. Shit, what were we just talking about before? I wanted to tie that in. We'll come back to it.
Yeah.
I think we're on our second. Andrew, how many have you had?
3.
That's good.
Only 3.
Yeah, that's solid. Well, it's watered down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, forgive us, and listeners, forgive us. Pardon that moment. See, you're listening, so you'll know what's up, and it'll just hit us. The key is to not try. I let it go. No, yeah, I like, you know, there's this moment in A Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
You're familiar?
Yeah.
Okay. Like when the cop scene.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That can't be it. He's shooting the gun off in every direction out in the desert by himself. He's left the first hotel.
Mm-hmm.
The narrative is that there's like no use fighting the universe. Right? That's his aha moment in that current trip.
Yeah. And
he's only remembering what he already knew, you know, and you're fortunate if you find that. So,
in a later time.
Right. Yeah. So, somewhere in what we're talking about, what I just said relates to what we were saying.
I remember.
Oh, there we go. Okay. See, I knew it.
So how they were saying how the reception and the same critical response is given to something now as it was then.
Yeah, there we go.
But a certain respect for it will be given later when it is taken out of time. And the same thing. That's why I feel like I love Star Wars. I have a Star Wars tattoo. But, like, I feel like us as a group and as a fan club, if you will, is very spoiled and very, if you don't do it in the way that I'm expecting, I'm going to trash all over you. And so, how you were saying how the original Alien was given a certain response, and now that we've given time and we're not in the same era that we were that it was released, we give it a certain respect, and the same thing is given for Prometheus. We look at like movies like, let's say, The Last Jedi, and because there's like thousands upon thousands of videos of fan theories on what we think should or should not be happening, and we're presented something that nobody predicted and nobody would have written it on their own, you know, we crap all over it. But that doesn't mean it's a bad movie.
Right.
It's just we don't appreciate it because it's not what we would have done. So I feel like in 10, 15 years, we look back, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe it is just a crappy movie, but like maybe in 10, 15 years, when we look back at the trilogy that's unfolding right now, being released, we will look at it in a different light than we did when it first came out.
I can agree with that. I think that's very likely to be the case. I think that when we get another trilogy starting, we'll be able to then look at this as the second Skywalker trilogy. I guess the third one.
Yeah.
Because it's 2 Lucas, 1 Disney.
The giant Skywalker
this
drama.
When this newest one is finished, it'll be in a middle period now, right? It'll no longer be on the frontier.
Yeah.
Like the new trilogy and the solo films will make kind of like a new body of work from Disney on. And you'll have to kind of understand these last Skywalker films as the last Skywalker films. Like it'll cap that story and these characters.
And as much as you crave for more because that's what you've known, nothing lasts forever.
See, that's my point, is that, and I think this is, we come back to, I love how we're coming back to this, like Marvel does it effectively, Disney could use Star Wars in the same way, in that Marvel's such an expansive realm. Disney has so many realms. Okay, like Star Wars is a great palette from which to paint from. Okay, like paint a gorgeous fucking picture. You have all the money to buy the biggest portrait. Like dude, you should be raking the cash back in. You can make so many great stories. And like that's what I'm saying is that, and this is the point we could come to, I think, is that with Marvel, they use different types of films to continually to keep it. And like I think in the same way that like certain singular stories, which like they don't have enough breadth or depth
on their own
or value to keep you interested. Yeah, like they don't have the scope to pull you in out of your normal life, for example. Dune, you'd have to really read in and get the first book. I mean, get it. To I think be completely invested. And then if you're into the book series, then like you're in another world. Yeah, and right, like it's Game of Thrones viewer versus Game of Thrones reader and viewer. Like there's a difference actually. Right? Like
and the same thing that goes for Walking Dead and even Harry Potter to an extent.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely. I know some people only know the movies. You know, I've been pointing that out. I brought up Lord of the Rings, and he admitted on the session when he was here, like you know, he'd only seen the films actually, right? And I had to think about it. You know what? Like reading, I wouldn't say reading's going out. That's not the truth. But reading, not like people accept watching films very easily, and that's not to get into a thing on like books and films. I'm just saying that like, that is the case. And so in the way that we're talking about films being rehashed, like for films like Dune, like you have to accept, like when people talk about the old one, people are like, okay, it was an 80s film, so yeah, like we're talking about things in its time. Alien, we look back on and
it can be timeless.
Yeah, like it's timeless for these reasons, and it's a really great film. Dune was more of like, okay, for its time, like this is why it ended, why it is what it is.
Yeah.
And you look at, like you seem to like, time seems to, it fixes everything. Like it gives a fixity to happenstance. That locks it in its time. Like Jesus' story happens only in his space and time. That's what makes it singular. And yet you find the same trope in different... You see the same trope in many cultures.
And many stories.
Right. And many superhero stories are mythic Judeo-Christian stories, which are then other stories, actually.
Other rehash stories of it. I mean, you look at Black Panther, it's basically Lion King, but in another country and actual people.
It's badass.
You know what I mean?
It's so badass.
Yeah.
It's like, sick.
So...
And I think maybe we need to make these fundamental issues the most important thing possible. Now, I brought up to Edson today an important point on that author I keep mentioning, Nietzsche, and part of his, and I know I keep harping on these bigger ideas to get to, you know, look at power, right? Like bypass good and evil.
Yeah.
You know, understand not just the balance, but power. Like what's really going on. And this person intimates in their writings that power those issues about power, those are the issues you need to think about, discuss, and work out. Like, honestly, work out with others.
Yeah. Because
that's
what power is an interaction between others. And that's essentially, if there are no others, there is no power. Because you cannot enforce power on nobody. You enforce your power on others.
Dude, I had that exact conversation in a different way with someone else fucking today. Okay. Also, what I'll add to that is, what I think I was trying to hone in on, but you said it very well. We're going to say this in 3 different ways. Holy shit. Dude, that was nice. Very well put. I think what I was trying to say is, fuck, it'll come back to me. It's one of those things. It's one of those things, you know? My pardon. No, okay, I'll say what I said at work, and then I'll come back to what I think I was trying to get to. I forgot who it was. I think it was Alex V who I was talking to, or maybe it was someone at the desk. But I was saying how, no, it was Edson who brought this up, and then I told someone else, is that in all beings there is this will to be enslaved, and also the will to dominate all other life. Like it exists simultaneously in all beings.
Yeah.
And there is a balance.
Yeah.
And you're wired a certain... Well, now we're getting into a different topic. Well, you're wired a certain way, and
yeah, sometimes
you experience life then a different way, which then, because you're wiring, you experience a certain way, and that develops you a certain way, and then you meet people, then that affects you. Then maybe like somewhere down the line, instead of the world affecting you,
you affect the world.
You then affect the world because you have a self-realization. You're born again, or you self-create again. I'm definitely in touch with that. A lot of people who are like hitting like 30 or they have the midlife crisis, that's what's occurring. They're creating themselves. They're dealing with the world. And some people, they're in certain spots where they affect the world.
Yeah. Right.
So rather than just like, that's the realm of power there, right? And just talking about it is how we seem to bear with the madness of existence. And I think here's where we can make a big statement, and I think this is a great moment. It seems that drama and tragedy, or rather comedy and drama out of tragedy, seem to alleviate the horrors of life.
Yeah.
Right? Out of a tragic world, the drama and comedy here alleviates the horror of existence. Right? Like look at
even just basic everyday work life.
Yeah.
Like 90%, no, like 75% of the day, or 75% of the interaction with guests is a front, and your reaction or the consequences of those interactions is what, for the most part, sometimes you have managers, or sometimes you have other coworkers, or sometimes you just have regular everyday weather affects your day. But those interactions, whether good or bad, will affect you, and then those effects will change the way your day goes. But then the way your day goes, you could be having a crap day, and you literally have a very small interaction with one person or a group of people in between those interactions that can somehow just switch it like that.
You're absolutely right. I caught on to that in my time in Anaheim. I think I was in a different frame of mind in my life, that I caught it in Anaheim as opposed to my earlier time working in Huntington Beach from 2006 to about 2009. And I caught it more and more, and I think there was just a freedom of knowledge and open-mindedness at that point in my life that I entertained that, it's all about how you take things in and how you view them, right? Yeah. It's less like, up till this point, you were feeling the world view you, right? Like all eyes are on you. You're being affected. And now I was getting to kind of like start to glance back.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's what it felt like. And I remember this one day, like it was like cheerleader mom, Saturday lunch.
Yeah.
A lot of really, oh my goodness, you don't want to serve kind of people. And like husbands that needed a drink and don't want to be with their wives, and unhappy children, and a lot of like really picky women. Oh my goodness. Anyways, I'm burnt out. I'm doing like 6 days a week, mostly nights. I'm doing like one weekend day shift. So I'm on a routine where like, alright, this is fucking stressful shit. Oh my god.
Yeah.
And this is like, I'm in a motherfuck kind of day where it's like, holy fuck, I'm getting just a string, row after row after row in these rotations of like,
bullshit.
Yeah, bullshit. Yes, I'm sorry. This is a bad day. Holy fuck.
Yeah.
And this is before I've taken on probably my best frame of mind. It's an adapting thing, but I was less developed than I'd say today, even though I was probably really developed for my time even. Anyways, my old bestie, who I think I knew more to kind of understand and deal with. Like, it wasn't even a girlfriend. This is this really good bestie who I got close to. And, like, if fate had intervened, could have gone a different way. In no way do I think, like, whoa, like, this could have been a game changer, like, love of my life. No, just very easily, this could have been a much more important person in my life. I haven't seen them in years. But all of a sudden, I turn around the corner and the specials, fish, drink order. But do I know you? I know you, yeah. What are you here for? You're getting married. Oh, and these girls, they know me from back then too. And they don't like me, I know that. Okay. Alright, hi. Let me get that drink order. I'll be right back with you. Check my other tables real quick. And I barely get back on the line, and I'm like losing it hysterically, hysterical laughing. Laughing. Pardon me. And like I cause a scene, but it's like for real because it's so absurd.
Yeah.
How fate intervened to deliver that whole day to me.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, getting out that day was like a relief. Pardon me. Oh my god, that was such... Oh god, it was just like thinking back to it as an experience. Just the memory is... It was something else. Holy shit. Like, that was just a weird table to get through. Like, their lunch, their little reunion thing, that had to be so awkward for them too. Like, oh my lord.
Honestly, it's like, it's a trope for a reason. You hit the point of not tragedy but struggle to the point where it's funny, and that's why it goes hand in hand, because it could be a horrible day and then something happens, and even it could be a horrible thing, but it triggers a laughter or a comedy inside you, and then once that hits, everything else is just not a joke, but it's not as serious anymore.
That's exactly it.
You can have a crappy day, but at a certain point, just laugh at it, and honestly, it's like, it'll be done soon, you know?
Dude, I even had a phrase, and this too shall be done, I think. That's it. Yeah, that's his thing now, right? That's his thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what he says when he goes in, like, this too shall be done, you know? And, like, I like that. It's pretty simplistic. You know, it's a working man's kind of way to get through it. But it kind of encapsulates that right there. And my story kind of, like, it's an example of that exact thing, right? And, like, when people say living the dream, I think sometimes, like, they're just saying it.
Yeah.
But, like, I feel like you could really be living the dream if you can kind of stay in that state where you're kind of in a perpetual sarcastic position, right? You can kind of just sit back and kind of enjoy everything happening and just kind of spit bars at it, like, what the fuck's up with this shit, right? Like, you're a comedian in your own stage.
I feel like I feel like anybody at any given time can get to that point on any given day. And I feel like your acknowledgement of your lack of power in the ongoings of the world makes something click inside you that makes it all not unimportant, but your lack of power gave you power. Your understanding that I have no impact on what goes on right now today, that makes it so easy to observe what's going on and therefore make it funny or serious or however you want to put it. But I feel like that's why people watch so much, and that's why it's so almost not godlike, but like you can sit back and watch what's going on as opposed to being in it, and your lack of power in changing what's going on almost gives you that power. So your lack of power gives you a power in your own head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's pretty crazy, because I think that's when you're having such a crap day that you like there's a point where, not where you crack, but you realize like you start laughing at it. That's the point where you almost grab your power back.
I get that, yeah. And I think, like, in the way that, like, I think we've discussed power and good and evil and, like, balance, like, and I've brought this up, I recognize it's a phrase I bring up, because I'm always thinking in it and thinking through it, is space and time, space-time. Is that it seems that you're bearing, how successful you bear with the universe, and living in it, your human existence in it, your causality seems to hinge on like a balance, a push and a pull, right? Like, and you probably feel the least amount, I can't even argue that, a varying amount of stress, the better handle you have. Doesn't mean that you ever have control or absolute and maybe you can achieve that, or the idea of self-mastery is that's perfection, so you want to strive for it. Maybe you can't ever reach perfection, but you can strive for perfection and try to achieve perfect state, so you can achieve self-control through trying to achieve self-mastery. So I think that can be a very big thing. What was I just trying to, I was trying to bring back around to something. Maybe I had too much to drink.
Because your place in the universe and power over what you can accomplish and when you can or cannot change. So I think you were saying your strive and your drive to self mastery is your own way of balancing what you can control in this universe.
That's what I like to get to, yeah. And I think that's why mythic stories, figures speak to us so much, and telling them in different ways, like with the Marvel universe, communicates them in a fresh way, in a new way, that you can pump them out every other year, pretty much. And it's going to keep going on like that. And, like, I'm blown away at Marvel, because they're what? Phase 3?
It's 10 years in. It's 10 years in. And that's why it's funny, because Disney owns both, so you would think that they can take what they have in one and use it for the other, but they can slowly introduce new characters and make them a focal point, and still have the other characters contribute and be the forefront leaders of this franchise, and then slowly phase out the old ones while putting the new ones up, and then start the new cycle over again. So it's one big universe, but each set of characters gains a new set of importance. You know what I mean? Whereas Star Wars is stuck on Skywalker.
Yeah.
And they're trying to promote a new set of characters, but they can't, for whatever reason. And they want this new set of characters to be a new focal point for a new franchise, and then forget the old ones, but they can't do it for whatever reason. And I feel like that's why they fail and why Marvel succeeds, is because, and that's why movies like Infinity War are so successful. With the snap of a thumb and an Infinity Gauntlet, they got rid of half the universe, and all the new characters that have been introduced over the past 3 or 4 years to succeed the old ones are gone. And in turn, we'll see how it turns out. I don't know what the script is for the next one. I'm assuming they're going to try to get back those people. But if a company and a studio can, at the snap of a fingers, do something like that in order to further progress the story, then they are more concerned about the story than they are about the money. They don't care about the money. They want to further their story, and that's why I can respect Marvel more than I can respect, I guess, Star Wars, because, I mean, at the end of the day, they're all trying to make money, but if it makes more sense for the story to kill off their old people and introduce new ones in order to keep it fresh, they'll do that, whereas Star Wars will not, and that's not, you know, other movies come out, maybe they'll learn from their mistakes, you know, they'll learn from movies like Solo and, I guess, further create and go deeper into newer characters. So I guess we'll have to see.
I think it comes down to a money issue a lot of the time.
Yeah.
It comes down to being a straight money thing. I think there's something to be said also, like, right in between when you hit the mark. Will you please the critics, the return, right? Like, where, okay, like, I think with that example right there with Infinity
War.
There you go, thank you. I was gonna say Gauntlet or Throne, you know, some
Gauntlet would work too.
With that ending, no, the sequel has to resolve that, but that's gonna be a story in itself. I can't fucking wait.
Yeah.
You did everything to make me know that and still want to see it.
Yeah.
Right? So even though I know they have to fix it, and they have to, because the story has to go that way to work, because I know that, it's fine because they did it right.
Yeah.
Right? They hit, and that's what I'm saying. Like, there is okay, it's not just on the production side, it's just how you tell a story can go a certain way, and it'll have a certain effect because of it. And I think that we've been on this thing with Marvel. That's one example, one storyline, one world where they've hit the mark enough consecutive times that it's create a kind of a pathway where they're able to finally do Infinity War and then affect what they did, right?
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, $1 billion movie, $2 billion return, something like that, I think. So, you know, it's incredible. It's really incredible.
Yeah.
And I think that's a universe that's developed.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? And I think it's had to grow that big, even when it's been developed in film right now. I'm very interested in what is soon to come. Like, Game of Thrones is wrapping up. They're making some sequel series now. I'm not sure where that will go, how big it will get. It was like Battlestar Galactica had a brief spin-off, I think. Some series have that, and it just doesn't fly. It has 1 or 2 seasons. Like, the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer had Angel. Yeah. And that kind of tapered off, too.
I mean, even when it comes to... Even that circles back to... Game of Thrones circles back to Star Wars. The showrunners for Game of Thrones are writing what it seems like is the Old Republic type spin-off to Star Wars. So you need to see... If someone who's successful in this long-running show that's captivated, you know, millions of people, can translate that success in what they've done here and move it over here. And how much Disney or whatever studio is governing them will interfere, because you've seen that they can succeed with HBO, and they had a certain source material that they had to pull from. And of course there's been changes along the way in order to cater to the story. But they succeeded here. So if they succeeded here but they can't succeed here, then you need to narrow down the problem. You know what I mean? If an outlet isn't working, or if something you plug in isn't working, you try something else to plug in. If it's also not working, is it that it's not working, or is it that electricity is no longer coming out of that socket? Same thing can be said. They're successful here. Can they be successful here? And if they're not, is it their fault? Or is it because they are no longer given the authority to be successful where they're going? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a very good point.
I need to use the restroom.
Please. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Where is this?
It's going to be, once you're in, take the hallway, first left.
Take the hallway on my left, and then it's on my first left.
That's correct.
Got it. I will be back.
All right, no worries. I'll keep this thing busy. All right. Brief sojourn. I'm gonna light some incense. I'm gonna talk a whole bunch. I think I know what I want to say, and I'll bring it back up around when Andrew steps back in. So I've been leading up to bringing up this novel series, the sci-fi series called The Horus Heresy. It's also connected with the 40K series from the Black Library. And in just my personal reading, because it's for entertainment, I find that it is very much something focused on power relations. That power, in the way that I've discussed it most of the evening, is dealt with in regards to human life on a grand scale and then also small scale in this book series. And so I think as content that is widespread, it has a breadth to it, a depth to it. I think for content that is that expansive, it could provide enough resource and value to demonstrate on screen for people to view as media. And for people to view as media, it would get out to enough people. And so then if you could get enough people to watch this type of show or to watch this form of media, the type of value you'd get out of it is an understanding of power relations. And since we live in a world of power relations, as we were just stating earlier, pardon me, that is part of me, but I think it's like an education. Like we were touching on how Star Wars on a rudimentary scale has been communicating that, and people kind of pick it up here and there in the world, and we've discussed it freehand tonight, and you can hash it up, sure, if you like really want to get that deep, but as something to fundamentally understand, I don't think there's a great many examples. And again, sometimes you got to really read a lot to get the whole meat of a story, right? It's like you've got to read the Silmarillion and the Hobbit with the Lord of the Rings to get Tolkien's vision, right? And people only credit you if you read everything. You didn't read all of Harry Potter, fuck you. So in my opinion, I think as a potential show, that would be something really great, and that's also why I brought up earlier with Andrew, will films or longer form casting shows where they can binge, which one will dominate the future? Will movies remain a huge source of income for studios? Will that dominate what kind of stories are created and in what form, and then how they'll then be received? Like, could Dune be a better new series? Like, there was a little mini-series that was done for a while. Could a new movie be done more successfully as a series as something streamed? Like, how are we best telling stories that are vital? See, I'm more interested in what's valuable to the human being and less so what's filling someone's checkbook. Now, yeah, people need to live and they need money to live, but I'm obviously more interested in the deeper shit going on. And so, in the same way that the Jodorowsky Dune would have been more impactful, if this kind of story was told, I'd want it to be the right kind, and then the same kind, that's the right kind of story, I'd want it to be, told the right way, that I'd want it to be the right kind of story. And so, it's probably more of like a really sci-fi, geeky kind of world that most people probably see. But for me, I was really much threatened by the world I lived in, I felt. And I needed relief, a release, I think, from, pardon me, the world I lived in. I needed relief from just living, and so these stories in a dark sci-fi future kind of brought that kind of relief in a strange way. But, this was kind of horror. This was kind of tragic. I didn't like watching horror or tragedy in any way on screen. I didn't like the visual views, but reading it didn't bother me, strangely. And so I enjoyed this series in a huge way. I mean, I can't tell you how many books in that series I own. Almost too many. Too many. Andrew is back. Andrew, I was just relating how like what shows or what stories would be best adapted to broadcast a message, and then what form of broadcasting a message would bless you.
Excuse me, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Would work best today. And I think that comes back to like what we might have brought up earlier with, pardon me, movies over streaming series.
Okay.
Right? Like, yeah. I think we were coming back to that. And I think, like, for monetary purposes, it probably comes down to, like, maybe movies. I think, perhaps.
Yeah, because even when you look at the Netflix model for making money, they have increasingly spent more and more on their productions and on their shows. But their cost, or what they are charging people for their service, has relatively been constant. I mean, every maybe a few months or every like year or so, it goes up like maybe $1. So when you think about how much money they're bringing in versus how much they're spending, it does probably make more sense as long as you have a good story and something that's marketable. You make more, I would think, movie-wise. But studio interference and the strive for money will always get in the way of that. So it's a give and take, because you can pump out much more content on a streaming service because you were given the lenience to create certain stories, whereas movies is very much regulated by people of power into what you are creating and how you are creating it, and even once it's created, how it's marketed to the people who may or may not watch it.
So I think that's kind of the flip side of what I asked, is that, like, what's the value of what you're trying to tell? What did, you know, the story you're trying to put out there? Like, I think that has a huge import on how you then want to tell it.
Yeah.
You know, like you there's some things that you only need to say in a single film. I think there's certain pivotal films, even adaptations, that you just see that one film and yeah, that's all I ever needed to see about that, right? Like,
yeah.
Fear and Loathing, you see that film and it's like, whoa.
Yeah. Right?
Like, if you're getting it, if you're, like, tuned in, you're getting it, like,
yeah.
Whew, that'll change things for you. Same thing with Fight Club. Santa Sangra by Joe Dorowski. That's a hell of a film to watch. Check that out sometime. So that's crazy. Oh my god, I was entranced. There's other films like that. And you only need one film to do that. But I think certain stories only require that. And I think those work in a wider breadth of all human stories, all human experience. So I think that's where those shine, those stories.
It's just harder and harder to make content, not even just movies content, whether that's streaming service shows or movies or really anything, even books. It's harder to make one-off stories now because it is more profitable to make something that can continue in order to make more money down the line. That's why I feel like movies like Whiplash or Birdman or, you know, Roma, you know, movies that don't have to be in a shared universe, that don't have to have a continuation, are so well received, is because they don't have an end credit scene, or they don't have a hint as to what will come next. They are that much more impactful, because what you see is what you get, and once that story is done, it's done. You can go and rewatch it, but there's nothing new. Like, maybe there's something new you take from it, but they're not gonna bring you another one. Maybe 30 years from now they'll make a remake, but it's in terms of that story that they told you. after the story is done, it's done. And so, and I'm a victim. I'm not a victim. I'm an advocate of shared universes when necessary and when applicable. Because who doesn't want to see a reference to something else, as obscure as it is, to something else, if you've also seen that, because you're like, oh, like I know what he's talking about because I've seen this, and in the future it's going to tie it all together, and that's great. But not everything needs to be told in that formula. So it is nice to see those one-off movies sometimes, in a day and age where sequels and shared universes are all the rage.
I think that's a good point to kind of come full circle. Maybe is that we were kind of debating. I think we got into one point how things, you give them enough time and you can kind of come back to them and they change in the course of time. They're kind of timeless. And I was gonna, at the time I meant to jump in and relate it also to music. I remember listening to this old interview of Morrison. I'm sure it's on YouTube. It's one of several. And he was saying how, you know, they might put out, it was like towards the end of the Doors' career. Like, they're pretty much at the end, actually.
Yeah.
And he's having this interview, and he's saying, oh, we might put out a few more records, you know, maybe. You know, to stick around a while, and, you know, see if you have, he says the other part next. How's he put it? Prove you have staying power. Like the way he put that, you know, like, oh, you become part of the social fabric or the social consciousness. Like if you're around long enough,
you become iconic almost.
Right.
I get that.
Right, like that's right. Like Star Wars means more now than ever.
Yeah.
Right. Even it was amazingly impactful when it happened. Yeah. But it's bigger now. And I think that's the same with all things.
I get what you're saying, and I almost bring it back to the opposite. So when you see, like, let's say, artists like Nirvana. I like Nirvana's music, not all of it, but there are a lot of songs on the albums that they did release that I will listen to on my personal time. But I feel like people like Kurt Cobain and Biggie Smalls and Tupac Shakur, that they are as big as they are because they did not continue in what they were doing, as opposed to flaming out. You know what I mean? Like they exploded and then disappeared, as opposed to staying lit and dimming over time. And not to say that they weren't great while they were here and while they were alive, and that's not to like belittle their impact on musical culture, whether that can go for actors or for anybody really. But I feel like those that were cut down in their prime or died in their prime, whether that was at the hand of somebody else or themselves, I feel like their impact is so much more because they left at the height of their impact, as opposed to disappearing and fading over time.
That is such a unique and interesting topic to get into. I have a wonderful biography on Jim Morrison that I enjoyed. And then I saw the 90s film, and I did a whole bunch of other research, and then I read this book again and read it one more time. And it's a wonderful subject to get into on that subject alone.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's like another hour just
going
right there. No, I was going to say, we're going to come up on 3, so I was going to say, like, let's tone it down, maybe.
Tone it down to keep it to 3.
Yeah, there we go. I was going to say, like, I thought we were going to cut out at, like, 2. This is great. I was going to say, let's call it a night.
Okay.
We've done pretty good.
That sounds good.
All right, sir, it's been such a pleasure to have you over.
I appreciate your invite and your invite into your audience and to your community. So I appreciate that very much.
No, it's a pleasure. I want to always return the favor of our friendship, and you are a friend of mine, Andrew. And if I can, just to help you out, is there any way people can find you or contact you, or what kind of social media imprint do you have? If you want to put it out there.
So right now I only have a YouTube and a Twitter. I do post updates on what I will or will not be coming out with video-wise on my Twitter, which should be at film_phantom. But my YouTube channel is just one word, Film Phantom, no spaces. I'm 6 videos in and continue to come out with at least one video a week, whether that's a review or a movie list. But yeah, if you want to subscribe, go ahead and do that, and hopefully have conversation about movies in a lighthearted tone. And yeah, I do my best on there.
No, I've enjoyed the videos you've sent me. I really love them. They're fun and just straight up enjoyable. I love them. You should really check them out. Andrew makes films. I don't know. He's made me want to rewatch things and watch things just to begin with. So I really love his reviews.
Oh,
no, they're fantastic. They're fantastic, Andrew. I want to come back to that for just a moment. This has been DARKHARTE episode 6. Again, you heard my guest Andrew, all of his information. Please go check him out. You can find me at Pacifica Divine on Instagram. My YouTube is also Pacifica Divine. And let's go ahead and close out the DARKHARTE podcast. Andrew, I'd love to have you back on. It's been such a pleasure, okay?
You got it.
All right, beautiful. All right, it's been a good night, everybody.
Good night, guys.
Let's close it out.
All right.
Bye.